Chapter 152. If you are willing to cooperate, what I want is simple. For the next 30 years, the Zhang clan will help me construct the items on the blueprints. Everything must be constructed according to my requirements, to the highest standard. All of the metal castings must be inscribed with at least 10 layers of toughness, and they must meet the requirements. Wang Chong didn't know what the head of the Zhang clan was thinking about, or perhaps he didn't care. He stretched out his right index finger and lightly tapped on the table. His rhythmic tapping gave off a very confident and rhythmic feeling. Inscriptions of at least 10 layers? That's a frighteningly high cost. The head of the Zhang clan frowned. He almost thought that the Wang clan was going to revolt, but upon hearing the inscription of 10 layers, he knew that he was overthinking it. You don't have to worry about that. I will pay for all of the cost of inscriptions. Wang Chong said calmly. He lacked everything at the moment, but money wasn't one of them. Even though the cost of inscriptions was expensive, given his strength, it wasn't a problem. Then there's no problem. As for the inscriptions, it's not a problem for us to pay in advance. What about the Wuxia steel? The head of the Zhang clan said. After which, he turned to look at Wang Chong intently. This was what he cared about the most. Wang Chong could own a portion of the Zhang clan. And it wouldn't matter, even if there wasn't a 30-year deadline. What the Zhang clan cared about the most was Wang Chong monopolizing the most mysterious and popular Wuxia steel in the entire Central Plains. Only those who were in the industry would know how high the status of this young man in front of them was. 300,000 gold taels for a single weapon. This had sent the entire circle into a frenzy. Right now, all of the weapon merchants viewed this young man as a god. If they could work for this young man, many of them would be willing to work for free. It was a pity that this young man was elusive, and not just anyone could enter the Wang clan. Otherwise, just by taking a stroll around the weapon market, this young man would know how influential he was in the circle. With this kind of influence, coupled with the reputation of Wuxia steel, if it could be combined with the Zhang family in the capital, the influence of the Zhang family in the capital would not be weakened, but would be even greater. Just like what Wang Chong had said, it was entirely possible for them to become the #1 swordsmithing family. This was the reason why he was here. It's very simple. I can sell Wuxia steel, Hyderabad ore, to you for 20,000 gold taels. As for how much you sell it for, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. However, no matter how many jun of ores you buy from me, your Wuxia steel cannot use my name. Secondly, you must listen to me on how many Wuxia steel weapons you sell every month. The number of weapons sold in a month could not exceed 4. As for whether it will change in the future, I will let you know when the time comes. Also, at this stage, Wuxia steel weapons can only be sold to the Imperial Guards. Wang Chong extended 2 fingers. 4. That's too little, can you increase it? The head of the Zhang family asked with a slight frown. Definitely not. Wang Chong chuckled. On the surface, it seemed as though he was easy to negotiate with, but the meaning behind his words was the complete opposite. The rarer an item is, the greater its value. If Wuxia steel weapons were all over the streets, do you think that they would still be able to sell for such a price? Of course, if a few unfilial descendants of the Zhang family were to appear in the future, it wouldn't be surprising if 1 or 2 Wuxia steel weapons were to be sold outside. Right? Haha, Gongzi is wise. Don't worry. Our Zhang family will strictly abide by our agreement with Gongzi. The head of the Zhang family complimented Wang Chong inwardly. He had completely understood Wang Chong's intentions. Just like what Wang Chong had said, the rarer an item was, the greater its value. If too many Wuxia steel weapons were to appear, they would not be able to sell for a high price. However, if 1 or 2 weapons were to appear in the black market, not only would it not affect the price of Wuxia steel, it would even further increase the market's thirst for Wuxia steel. In fact, there might even be situations where the black market was selling them at a higher price than the Imperial Army. Regardless of whether it was for the external or internal market, the profits of the Wuxia steel weapons would be maximized. In this aspect, the young man before him had already considered it thoroughly. In this aspect, even the heads of many prestigious clans might not be able to match up to him. There's one last thing that I believe Gongzi should know. We are out of ores. The head of the Zhang family said with a crafty glint in his eyes. The Zhang family's ores in the capital were almost empty. This was the biggest problem in their collaboration, as well as the Zhang family's weakness. The head of the Zhang family was worried that this would affect Wang Chong's opinion, so he intentionally left it till the end. Ha ha ha. Wang Chong laughed heartily as he stood up from behind the table. It was as though he had expected the head of the Zhang family to say this. This matter is even easier to resolve. I've already prepared the new large-scale ores for you. As Wang Chong spoke, he flicked his sleeves and placed the deed of the ores on the table. Looking at the deed before him, the head of the Zhang family looked at Wang Chong in astonishment for the first time. He couldn't have imagined that the greatest problem of the Zhang clan, a problem that concerned the rise and fall of the Zhang clan, would have been resolved by Wang Chong. The head of the Zhang clan in the capital left with great shock. When he stepped out of the doorstep of the Wang clan and left with the deed in hand, he was still in a daze, unable to believe what he had just seen. It had been many years since he would allow himself to be swayed by external factors. But this time, holding the title deed, he really had a heavy feeling, as if he was in a dream. Young master, the profits of the Wuxia steel are huge. Why do you want to hand it over to the Zhang clan? Isn't it better to hold on to it for yourself? Unknowingly, Shen Hai had walked to Wang Chong's side and whispered. In the Wang clan, Shen Hai and Ming Long were one of the few who could speak to him in such a manner, and even oppose Wang Chong. There were simply too many profits to be made from the Wuxia steel. From the very start, Shen Hai felt that his side was suffering a huge loss. That's because this is the only way to maximize profits. Wang Chong said calmly. Even though the profits from designing the Wuxia steel weapons could be maximized, easily selling a single Death's Abyss for an astronomical price of 300,000 gold taels. To most people, this was something that they would never dare to imagine in their entire lives. However, it was too slow to produce a single sword every month. But Wang Chong couldn't possibly forge the swords himself. If he did so, he wouldn't be able to sell them for a high price. Thus, selling it to the Zhang clan became the best choice. This way, he would be able to differentiate the weapons he sold. And at the same time, he would be able to maximize his profits. With money, he would be able to move on to the next step of his plans. The Zhang clan's efficiency far exceeded Wang Chong's expectations. That title deed had a huge impact on the Zhang clan. On the very same night, Wang Chong came to a secret agreement with the Zhang clan. The Zhang clan would use 500,000 gold taels to obtain 50% of the mining rights to the mine. At the same time, they would use another 1 million gold taels to obtain the distribution rights to the Hyderabad ores from Wang Chong. Due to the huge sum of 1.5 million gold taels, the Zhang clan didn't have that much liquid assets. Thus, they would give the Zhang clan a 3-month buffer period. And within 2 to 3 years, they would have to pay off the debt in the form of gold, or in other forms agreed upon by both parties. This matter hadn't been announced to the public yet. Other than Wang Chong and a few elders of the Zhang clan, no one else knew of the contents of the agreement. Time flew, and unknowingly several days had passed. The bright moon hung high in the sky. In the dead of the night, everyone was in a deep slumber. In the east of the capital, roughly 100 zhang away from the Zhouji charcoal wine shop, a black silhouette could be seen amidst the shadows of the trees. His sleeves fluttered as though he was a gigantic bird, and he staggered along the roofs. Traitor! To think that I treated you as my own child, yet you dared to collude with outsiders to betray me. Black smoke billowed from the figure's body, and he exuded an intense malevolent aura, making him look like a ferocious beast. Under the moonlight, if one were to take a closer look, one would realize that he was a black-haired elder with disheveled hair. His left hand was clutching his chest, and fresh blood was flowing out from between his fingers. However, the most disastrous thing was that a long sword on his back had pierced his palm from behind. The long sword had even pierced more than a foot into his palm. Traitor, I'll never let you off. I'll never let you off. The elder clenched his teeth, and a ferocious glint flashed across his eyes. Under the moonlight, his eyes were actually blood red, as though a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Gagaga! In the big tree beside the house, The night birds were startled by the intense malevolent aura, and they all screeched and rushed up. In the courtyard nearby, the dogs were also startled awake, and they all began to bark uneasily. What's going on? Why are the dogs barking in the middle of the night? In the house below, the faint sound of a husband and wife getting up could be heard. The black-haired old man's legs went soft. Suddenly, with a kacha sound, he stepped on several tiles and fell down from the roof. He hit the wall, and then fell into the dark, dirty alley and fainted. Blood kept flowing out of his body. As the blood flowed out, the old man's aura grew weaker and weaker. His jet-black hair also turned from black to white at a speed visible to the naked eye, from the roots to the ends of his hair. In the blink of an eye, the elder's black hair turned white, and he fell to the ground. His aura was weak, and he did not move at all. Whoosh! Not long after the elder fainted, a few enormous auras suddenly appeared in the distance, like the mountains and the seas. These people were extremely fast, and their figures could not be seen at all. In the void, only a few blurry shadows could be seen. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, a few ghost-like figures appeared above the roof where the elder had fallen. The dogs felt danger, and suddenly they started barking. Rustle! With a cold snort, one of the black figures turned his head to look, and a few dozen feet away, the black dogs immediately suffered heavy injuries. Blood flowed out of their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and they slowly lay on the ground motionless. The old man can't have gone far. If we let him make a comeback, we will be the ones to die. Search carefully, we must find him no matter what. 3 figures stood on the roof, and their cold eyes were like the eyes of the Grim Reaper. They slowly scanned the surroundings, and wherever their eyes passed, even the void was slightly distorted. Not far away, the elder's figure quickly appeared in the eyes of the 3. However, in the next moment, when they saw the elder's white hair, the 3 quickly looked away. It's just an old beggar. There's no need to care about him. Let's go, that whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chapter 153. Early in the morning, in the back garden of the Wang family residence, Wang Chong swallowed the consummation tiger bone minor cyclic pill, which he bought from Six-Fingered Zhang. Kacha! The crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard from within Wang Chong's body, and the acupoints all over Wang Chong's body emitted bursts of mist. Roar! The roars of a group of tigers could be heard in the air. Wang Chong had finally broken through to Tiger Bone 3 Dan. The effect of this minor rejuvenation pill is indeed much stronger than before. Wang Chong was pleasantly surprised. Compared to before, Wang Chong could clearly feel that his strength had increased by a lot. More importantly, after cultivating the Tiger Bone to level 3, he would have truly reached the realm of Tiger Bone perfection. His strength, endurance, stamina, and explosive power would all increase by a level compared to before. Boom! As Wang Chong's palm slashed down, a rock garden was blasted into powder by Wang Chong. The degree of destruction was even more severe than before, and the scene was even more spectacular. Thick billowing smoke lingered in the air. However, Wang Chong didn't feel much pain in his palm. This was because when he cultivated the tiger bone, his muscles, bones, and tendons had also been strengthened greatly, and his ability to resist pain and injuries had also increased greatly. Let's test my speed again. Wang Chong's eyes lit up, and he quickly swept his gaze across the surroundings. There were many trees in the Wang family's mansion, and as a result, many birds were attracted over. Some of the maids even fed them the leftover pastries in the mansion, which attracted more birds. Wang Chong's gaze swept across the surroundings, and soon, he saw a white-headed wing leaping on the top of a tree not far away. That's the one! A surge of energy flowed through his body, and Wang Chong smiled faintly. In the next instant, boom! The surrounding air blasted apart, and a faint tiger roar resounded in the air. Wang Chong was like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain as he dashed over. Chirp chirp! Feeling the danger, the white-headed bird wanted to flap its wings and take off, but it was still too late. A slender, fair, but extremely powerful palm quickly closed over. However, it only touched him lightly before quickly letting go. Pu Lung Lung! Pulsatilla Wang was frightened. Pu Lingling flew out from between Wang Chong's 5 fingers. Hee hee, my stamina consumption has indeed decreased by a lot. Wang Chong's chest slightly heaved up and down, looking at the pulsatilla wing flying away in the sky. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a satisfied smile. The last time he used this move, his stamina was almost exhausted. However, it was different this time. Although he still consumed less than a third of his stamina, it was not as much as last time. This was the difference between tiger bone and panther bone. Endurance, stamina, and primordial qi consumption were on completely different levels. Young master! Young master! Just as Wang Chong was immersed in joy, Meng Long suddenly rushed into the room while panting heavily. Young master, you've appeared. The person you spoke of has appeared. It's not far from Zhou's charcoal liquor. What? Hearing those words, Wang Chong's heart jolted, and he immediately turned his head around. Meng Long stuttered, but his words were vague. Even so, Wang Chong was still able to deduce what was going on from his description. Following Wang Chong's instructions, the guards of the Wang clan set up an inescapable net around Zhou's charcoal liquor, as well as the routes where Zhou once moved around. Following Wang Chong's instructions, these guards were only responsible for observation. If they discovered anything, they were to report it to Wang Chong immediately. Just that, after more than a dozen days had passed, no one had discovered anything. Until today, when an unknown old man suddenly appeared in the vicinity of Zhou's charcoal liquor. Meng Long and the others didn't know if this person was the one Wang Chong was looking for. But this was the only discovery they had made during this period of time. Is he the one you are talking about? Wang Chong stared at the figure several dozen zhang away. It was a white-haired old man dressed in black. He was lying on the ground, barely breathing. There were quite a few people passing by, but not a single one of them glanced at him. Needless to say, offer him a helping hand. That's him. Our brothers checked yesterday, and there isn't this old man within a radius of a few li. No one has any impression of him. It was as if he had suddenly appeared overnight. Furthermore, he woke up once in the morning, but he fainted once more. He seems to have been injured. I had one of my brothers pass by that area, and he smelled a faint stench of blood. However, the young master has instructed us not to act recklessly, so we didn't take a closer look. Meng Long squatted behind Wang Chong and said with a hushed voice. Wang Chong frowned and fell into deep thought. Wang Chong didn't know whether the unconscious old man on the ground was the evil emperor or not. There was simply too little information regarding that person. Even in his previous life, Zhou was very secretive and didn't mention it too much. Thus, Wang Chong had no way of knowing what the evil emperor looked like, what unique traits he had, and what he liked to dress up like. Without any of these, how could Wang Chong determine which one was the evil emperor and which one wasn't? However, even though he couldn't confirm the other party's identity, there was one thing he could be sure of. The other party wasn't an ordinary person. At the very least, an ordinary old man wouldn't suffer any internal injuries. Let's go. He won't be able to last long in his current state. As Wang Chong spoke, he stood up and quickly walked toward the elder by the base of the wall. The other party's condition wasn't looking good. Even if the other party wasn't the evil emperor, Wang Chong couldn't just stand there and do nothing about it. This wasn't how he would act. Wait a moment, young master. Meng Long was taken aback. He hurriedly followed him. There were people walking to and fro on the street, but the old man was lying on the ground with his face facing the wall. It was as though he was isolated from the world. Wang Chong walked over, and from afar, he could already smell the scent of blood. This person's injuries are much more severe than what Meng Long and the others said. Wang Chong frowned. Even though the old man had tried his best to conceal it, based on his experience from his previous life, as well as his familiarity with sword wounds, Wang Chong could tell that the old man had been stabbed in the back with a single glance. Furthermore, it was at the back of his heart. This is the work of an acquaintance. Otherwise, the stab wouldn't have been so precise. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind as he stared at the unconscious old man. If a person was facing a strong opponent, even if they couldn't dodge, they would at least attempt to dodge. It was impossible for the stab to be so accurate. Such a situation would only occur if it was done by an acquaintance. I wonder where this person came from. This isn't something an ordinary person can endure, Wang Chong thought. There were quite a number of mercenary bases in the vicinity, and Wang Chong knew of at least 3 of them. The old man's breathing seemed to be in a mess, and he was extremely weak. Even Wang Chong wasn't able to determine his background. Get some food and water. Also get a few men to bring him to the charity hall, Wang Chong instructed. As he spoke, he stretched his hand out to flip the old man over. Wang. Just as Wang Chong was about to flip the old man over, an abrupt change occurred. The white-haired old man, whose breathing was in a mess a moment ago, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were incomparably cold, and a fearsome killing intent could be felt emanating from them. This is bad. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, and a strong premonition of danger welled up in his heart. He immediately exerted strength in his squatting body, intending to retreat away from the old man. But before Wang Chong could retreat, a withered but powerful palm grabbed onto Wang Chong's wrist. Who in the world are you? The old man's expression was cold, and his voice was stern. Wang Chong felt his wrist go numb, and all of his strength dissipated. Before the old man, he was unable to exert any strength at all. You. Horrified, Wang Chong stared at the old man before him. His entire body went limp, and he couldn't even speak a word. This sight was completely out of his expectations. The old man's aura was weak, and he should have been able to defeat him easily. Yet despite having just advanced to Origin Energy Tier 7, he was completely powerless before the other party. He had no idea what kind of technique the old man used to grab his wrist, but he was actually unable to exert the slightest bit of his strength and Origin energy. Clang! The instant Wang Chong was grabbed by the old man, the sound of metal clashing echoed in the surroundings. Release my young master. Old fogey, what are you trying to do? Hurry up and release the young master. Otherwise, don't blame us for getting nasty. Meng Long unsheathed his saber and led his guards to surround the old man. His face was incomparably steely. To think that they were still thinking of saving this old man a moment ago. Yet, in the blink of an eye, this old fellow actually laid his hands on their young master. Meng Long was shocked and infuriated. If he could, he would have sliced the old man into 2. The crowd exclaimed in shock. This sudden sight left the passers-by dumbfounded. As though avoiding a plague, they hurriedly moved away. Humph. If any of you dare to come over, prepare to collect your young master's corpse. Savagery flashed across the old man's face, and he tightened his grip. Wang Chong groaned in pain, and cold sweat trickled down his forehead. Old man, what are you doing? Wang Chong cried out in pain. His voice was so soft that he didn't even have the strength to speak. Humph. Young man, do you really think that I can't tell? Your men are all around here, and they have passed by at least 4 times. Do you think that you can fool my eyes? You must have been searching for something, right? Speak. Did that bastard send you here? At the end of his words, the old man tightened his grip on Wang Chong, and a sinister and murderous aura burst forth from his eyes. In that instant, through the other party's eyes, Wang Chong could clearly sense the will of the other party. As long as he answered incorrectly, as long as he made the slightest mistake, the other party would kill him without any hesitation. Even if he was in the eyes of the crowd, even if he was in the capital. To this sort of person, killing another person was no different from killing another ant. It made no difference to him, and he had no qualms about it. This person is the evil emperor. Chapter 154. Wang Chong had been searching for the evil emperor and trying to confirm his identity. In the end, he finally found the evil emperor, but in a way that he did not expect. At this moment, Wang Chong was absolutely certain that this old man was the evil emperor that he had been searching for so long. The evil aura he exuded, the ruthlessness of treating human life like grass, and the so-called evil creature that he called his rebellious disciple. More importantly, there was no one who could subdue him so easily with a cultivation lower than his. Wang Chong did not even have time to react. The other party's experience, reaction speed, and awareness completely overwhelmed him. To be able to do this, the other party's cultivation had definitely reached a shocking level, even higher than his previous life. In Wang Chong's mind, The only one who could meet all these conditions was the evil emperor. However, while confirming the identity of the old man before him, Wang Chong also realized that he had unintentionally made a huge mistake. He had been searching for the evil emperor all this time, but he had neglected the fact that this person was a great demon who had killed people like scything flax. Finding this, the evil emperor, and obtaining the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art from him was definitely not as easy as he had imagined. There was a great deal of danger involved. People change. Wang Chong was completely sure that the evil emperor would be a kind person. He would even give up his own cultivation and life to help another person. However, this change could not be achieved in one go. Right now, the evil emperor had just experienced betrayal. The hostility and evil in his heart, as well as his paranoid personality, would only increase, not decrease. He had bumped into him at his most unstable, most vicious, and most unfavorable time. What was more troublesome was that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Although he was injured and in dire straits, his wits, temperament, sharpness, and alertness were still there. In fact, he was far more powerful than he had imagined. He set up a trap at Zhouji charcoal wine shop in the east of the city to search for the evil emperor. But in the end, it backfired and he saw through it. This was something Wang Chong had never expected. Now, if he didn't have a good reason to convince him, what awaited him was a dead end. The best divine art is indeed not so easy to obtain. This was the only thought left in Wang Chong's mind. The more powerful the martial arts, the harder it was to obtain. Even if he had the advantage of being a prophet, it was still the same. Wang Chong had to admit that he had underestimated the power of the evil emperor. The surroundings were quiet, and the atmosphere was extremely tense. The faces of Meng Long and the others, as well as Shen Hai, who had just arrived, were steeled. Everyone had made up their minds that if the evil emperor dared to do anything to harm their young master, they would charge forward together and tear him to pieces. "Old man, you're mistaken. I didn't," Wang Chong said calmly with a pale face. Ever since his reincarnation, this was the first time he felt the danger of his life hanging by a thread. The immense pressure coming from the other party was like a sword of Damocles hanging above his head, ready to descend at any moment. The evil emperor would eventually turn over a new leaf, but that was a matter of the future. At least for now, he was still the evil emperor. Wang Chong knew that whether or not he could escape from the clutches of the evil emperor would depend on what he said next. "Humph, are you still feigning ignorance in front of me? Looks like you're tired of living." The evil emperor sneered coldly, as a cold killing intent emanated from the depths of his eyes. "This lad still refuses to speak the truth. Does he really think that he can hide it from me?" The evil emperor sneered coldly as he tightened his grip. "Kacha!" A crisp sound echoed from within Wang Chong's body. Even his bones had been injured. "Stop! Audacious! Get away from young master!" That the crowd was shocked and infuriated. Their faces flushed red, and they wanted to make a move to deal with this old man together. Even so, Meng Long was infuriated. He was the one who informed Wang Chong of the news of this old man, and he was also the one who came here with Wang Chong. A moment ago, the crowd was still thinking of bringing him to Jizitang for treatment, but at the very next moment, something like this happened. "Old man, I think you're mistaken. I'm indeed looking for someone here, but the person I'm looking for isn't you." At this moment, Wang Chong had calmed down. The current evil emperor wasn't the benevolent evil emperor from the future. Instead, he was a vicious, cunning, suspicious, and treacherous evil demon. Wang Chong knew that he couldn't afford to let his luck get the better of him at this moment. "The people I'm looking for are the fishes from the Pavilion of Assassins. They once sent assassins to assassinate me, but I managed to get rid of them with the help of the Imperial Army. However, I've received news that there's a high chance that their men are hiding in the east of the city. You can easily find out about this if you ask around." Wang Chong replied calmly, pushing all the blame onto the Pavilion of Assassins. Wang Chong wasn't afraid that the evil emperor would see through him. Even though there were many people participating in this operation, most of them were ordered to look for suspicious individuals. Other than a few of his trusted aides, the others didn't know what was going on. Furthermore, "I don't know who that bastard is. I'm from a clan of ministers and generals, so how can I possibly listen to the orders of others? As Wang Chong spoke, he took out a token of the Wang clan from his waist. It was a palm-sized bronze token with cloud patterns on it. In the center of the token was the emblem of a huge tiger head, and on the reverse was the emblem of the Wang clan. This was the token of the Dianqing clan of ministers and generals. This was Wang Chong's final resort. As expected, just a moment ago, the evil emperor was brimming with murderous intent. But in the next moment, when he saw the token of the Tang dynasty, the murderous intent in his eyes immediately dissipated by half. You're actually the son of the Wang clan. Before he could see what was going on, Wang Chong's grip loosened. Before he could see what was going on, the Wang clan's token in his hand had fallen into the hands of the evil emperor. Looking at the token, then at the young man in his hand, the evil emperor's eyes were filled with complex emotions. The imperial court and the sects were two different worlds. If the child before him was really the son of the Wang clan of ministers and generals, then naturally, he wouldn't be in cahoots with that bastard. That kid didn't have the capability to order around the Tang dynasty's imperial court. However, whether it was true or not, he would have to test it out to know. Chi! A black shadow shot out from the evil emperor's hand. That black shadow moved as fast as lightning, drawing an arc in the air before flying back into his hand. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Shen Hai, Meng Long, and the others could clearly see that it was a copper coin. What are you doing? A guard stepped forward and bellowed. Then, the sound of cloth tearing could be heard. Dang dang dang. In the next moment, amidst exclamations of shock, a token fell from the waist of the guards. The evil emperor ignored the exclamations of the crowd. He reached out his hand, and a token flew into the air, landing in his hand. I was right. Upon seeing the token on the guard's waist, the sharp eyes of the demonic emperor old man finally softened. Since these people were the guards of the Wang clan of ministers and generals, it was impossible for them to be here for him. Perhaps, he had really misunderstood this matter. Who? Wang Chong felt the pressure on his wrist lessening significantly, and he heaved a sigh of relief. It was fortunate that no one knew about his ability to foresee the future. Even the evil emperor didn't know that even though he didn't know that traitorous disciple of his, he was indeed here for him. He had finally passed this test. Elder, you seem to be quite injured. Let me bring you to recuperate. Wang Chong corrected himself. Ha ha ha. Recuperate. Hearing Wang Chong's words, the evil emperor let out a sorrowful laugh. That traitorous disciple colluded with outsiders to destroy my sea of qi, injuring 7 of my meridians, 23 of my acupoints, and even severely injuring my conception and governing meridians. Right now, I don't even have 1/10 of my strength left. Moreover, it will become weaker and weaker. In less than 3 days, my power will completely dissipate. Unless I can obtain a Saint-tier recuperation pill, only then will I be able to preserve my foundation. It's a pity that only the royal family has such a pill. It isn't easy to obtain such a pill. But now it's too late. Traitorous disciple, I will never let you off. The evil emperor's mind was in turmoil. At the thought of his sorrow, he spurted a mouthful of blood essence. He was already injured to begin with, and on top of that, he had been fleeing for 1,000 li. As soon as he relaxed, all of his injuries flared up and he fainted. Kill him, bastard! Protect the young master! Shen Hai, Meng Long, and the guards of the Wang family residence had been keeping a close eye on the situation. Upon seeing the evil emperor's injuries acting up, they charged forward and placed 12 swords on the neck of the evil emperor. Wait a moment. Wang Chong stopped the crowd in time. Young master, we can't let such a person live. We saved him out of goodwill, but he nearly harmed you instead. It's better to kill this kind of person. Meng Long said furiously. The situation just a moment ago was dangerous. If something were to happen to him, he wouldn't know how he would explain it to the old master and madam. Don't worry, if he wanted to kill us, he would have done so long ago. Remember that copper coin? If it were to fly toward your neck, what would have happened? Wang Chong said. Upon hearing those words, the crowd felt a chill on their necks, and they subconsciously took a step back. That's right. With this person's cultivation, If he really wanted to kill them, he would be able to kill them as easily as killing chickens with that copper coin, and it would be effortless. Wang Chong ignored the crowd behind him. Rubbing his numb wrists, Wang Chong turned his attention to the unconscious the evil emperor. It was clear that the evil emperor had really acted up this time, and his injuries weren't light either. It was likely that he wouldn't be able to retaliate. However, this wasn't what Wang Chong was concerned about. Weird, why are his injuries so severe? Wang Chong looked at the evil emperor on the ground in bewilderment. Based on what the demonic emperor old man had said, it would take at most 3 days for his energy to dissipate. If that was the case, how was he going to impart his cultivation to Zhou Wen in the future? How was he going to teach him martial arts? Wang Chong had a feeling that the evil emperor's injuries were much more severe than in his previous life. Wang Chong couldn't help but think of Zhou Wen. Could it be that by luring Zhou Wen away, he had changed the fate between Zhou Wen and the evil emperor, resulting in such a change? However, this wasn't the time to be thinking about this. The most pressing matter at hand was to save the evil emperor. Otherwise, the great yin-yang heaven creation art would truly become a lost art. Chapter 155. Shenhai Mengwang. Quickly bring him to the carriage. Hurry up and send him to the charity hall. Wang Chong beckoned behind him. More and more people had gathered on the streets, but Wang Chong wasn't afraid of the crowd. But if the disciple of the evil emperor was still around, it wouldn't be a good thing. Wang Chong shot a glance at Shenhai, and the latter understood his intentions and started cursing. Damn old beggar, I wonder where he came from. How dare he be so rude to the young master? Carry him up, and teach him a lesson before sending him to the mass grave outside the city. A few of the Wang family's guards understood his intentions, and immediately carried the evil emperor onto Wang Chong's carriage. The surrounding crowd was initially curious, but upon hearing that the other party was just a beggar throwing a tantrum, they immediately turned bored and dispersed. Even though there were a few more observant ones who noticed the evil emperor's actions, and felt that the matter wasn't as simple as it seemed, they couldn't hold back their emotions. Furthermore, there wasn't much at stake here, so they didn't probe too deeply into the matter. Soon, the carriage left the vicinity of Zhouji charcoal liquor. Silence reigned in the carriage. The evil emperor lay motionless on the blanket, his breathing weak. Wang Chong lowered his head to look at him with a complicated expression. The unattainable great yin-yang heaven creation art in his previous life actually allowed him to succeed. And now, the most mysterious evil emperor was lying just inches away from his feet. This was something he didn't dare to imagine in the past. But even so, Wang Chong knew that the entire operation wasn't a success. The apocalypse is coming, and a top-notch expert like the evil emperor is indispensable. No matter what, I have to find a way to cure him. Wang Chong muttered to himself as his heart thumped. In his previous life, the evil emperor imparted all of his cultivation to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen also accepted his gift, and became a top expert in a single leap. However, Wang Chong believed that if he wanted to master the great yin-yang heaven and earth creation, and become a top-notch expert, he wouldn't necessarily need to sacrifice the evil emperor. The best way was to protect both of them at the same time. Even though the evil emperor had lost his martial arts, his experience, insight and knowledge were still far beyond that of an ordinary person. The great yin-yang heaven creation art was an unparalleled art, and only in his hands could it display its greatest power. Furthermore, even though the evil emperor had killed countless people and had committed countless atrocities, he had almost died in his hands. However, people change. After experiencing this life and death crisis, the future the evil emperor would turn from evil to good, completely different from before. Just this alone was worth Wang Chong trying his best to save him. Not only did he have to save him, but he also had to find a way to protect his foundation. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Wang Chong quickly came to his senses. A saint-grade healing pill. I wonder if this pill will work. With a thought, Wang Chong quickly took out a large healing pill from his robes. This pill was bought for him by Liu Zhizhang. Even though he didn't know if it was a saint-grade healing pill, it was undeniably from the palace. Forget it, I'll treat a dead horse like a live one. Even though I don't know if it's a saint-grade healing pill, At the very least, it's much better than the healing pills I can buy outside. With this thought in mind, Wang Chong squatted down, parted the lower jaw of the evil emperor, and stuffed a round healing pill into his mouth. The pill refined by the palace's alchemist melted as soon as it entered his mouth. In just a few moments, the entire pill melted into a liquid and flowed into the evil emperor's stomach. After a few breaths, a rosy hue surfaced on the evil emperor's face. His skin was originally pale and ashen, but at this moment, a tinge of redness could be seen on it. His originally indistinct and disorderly breathing also became thick and stable. Luckily, the 200,000 gold taels weren't spent in vain. Wang Chong bent down and stretched out his hand to feel the evil emperor's pulse. He heaved a sigh of relief. Back then, in order to join the so-called Dark Shadow and the Alchemist's alliance, he had spent more than 200,000 gold taels to buy the route. Now it was all worth it. These healing pills refined by the palace's alchemist were far more effective than Wang Chong had imagined. If not for these pills, the evil emperor's cultivation might really have dissipated. Shanghai, go to the Falling Jade Pavilion and look for Liu Zhang. Tell him that no matter what, he has to get me 3 of these healing pills. Otherwise, he can use my quota for this month as well. The stronger the effect, the better. Yes, Gongzi. Without another word, Shanghai turned around, pushed open the carriage door, and jumped out. His feet didn't even touch the ground as he sprinted towards the Falling Jade Pavilion. Wait a moment. After Shanghai left, Wang Chong pondered for a moment before changing his mind. I'm not going to the charity hall. I'm going to the Purple Bamboo Garden. The Purple Bamboo Garden was a secret residence that Uncle Li Lin bought for Wang Chong. It had been a long time since he bought it, but Wang Chong felt that it wasn't appropriate for him to move out at such a young age, so he didn't move in. The evil emperor was severely injured and needed peace and quiet to recuperate. The Purple Bamboo Garden was quiet and secluded, making it the most suitable place for him. The carriage made a turn and headed towards the south of the city. It didn't take long before he saw a quiet courtyard surrounded by a lush bamboo forest. It looked especially elegant and stylish. At the entrance of the courtyard, there was a plaque hanging on the wall that said Purple Bamboo Garden. The carriage passed by and soon entered the courtyard. The Purple Bamboo Garden was huge, and everything was ready for use. Gardens, ponds, terraces, pavilions, cultivation grounds, side rooms. Every single part of the place gave off a grand feeling. However, there was no one in the courtyard. There weren't any maids, servants, or guards around. Wang Chong hadn't moved in yet, so there wasn't a single person around. Stand guard at the entrance while the rest of you stand guard in the courtyard. No one is to approach. Wang Chong commanded. Yes, Gongzi. The crowd responded and left. Wang Chong placed the evil emperor on the bed. About an hour later, Shanhai's forehead was beaded with sweat. Fulfilling his mission, he rushed over with 3 larger healing pills. Liu Zhang was indeed loyal. When he heard that it was Wang Chong who wanted it, he quickly brought 3 stronger healing pills over and gave them to Wang Chong in advance. He didn't even take the money. Another 3 top-notch healing pills from the palace were fed to the evil emperor. The evil emperor's breathing improved significantly, and the wound on his back started to scab. About 4 hours later, 5 strong fingers suddenly shot out from the bed and grabbed Wang Chong's neck. Let go! Let go! That the room was in chaos. Seeing the unconscious evil emperor suddenly make a move, everyone was shocked and drew their swords. The atmosphere returned to the tense atmosphere of the street from before. Put down your swords. He's just reacting. Wang Chong indifferently said, his expression unperturbed. It was like the demonic emperor old man was not grabbing his neck. This evil emperor seems to be on guard. Wang Chong thought to himself. He was probably the only one in the room who knew that this was just the evil emperor's instinctive reaction. The stronger a person was, the more cautious they would be. The moment someone approached them, they would immediately retaliate. He was like that in his previous life. And a devil like the evil emperor was even more so. Kid, you're the one who saved me? On the bed, the evil emperor finally regained his senses and slowly released his fingers. The scenery in front of him was unfamiliar, and he wasn't sure where he was. But he recognized this kid. He was the young man who tried to save him on the street. Yes. Wang Chong smiled and didn't deny it. The room was silent. The evil emperor sat up on the bed and looked around. He quickly recognized that he was in one of the rooms. Is this your house? The evil emperor asked. No. Wang Chong smiled and shook his head. What a joke. Before confirming that the evil emperor had turned over a new leaf, he wouldn't dare to bring a devil like the evil emperor into his house. The demonic emperor old man closed his eyes, a look of recollection on his face, but he quickly realized a shocking fact. You healed my injuries? You actually have the royal family's saint-grade healing medicine? The demonic emperor old man was astonished. Although his reaction was slow, he quickly noticed it. After he woke up this time, the injuries in his body had actually healed by 70 to 80%. This time, he had expected that he would lose his cultivation. But now, the yuan qi in his body had stopped flowing and stabilized. This meant that his cultivation did not dissipate completely. Instead, a bit of his foundation was left. Senior, have you forgotten? I told you that I am the descendant of a general and a minister. Of course, I have the royal family's healing medicine. Wang Chong sat by the bed. His expression was calm, but there was a hint of slyness. The evil emperor was taken aback. Then, he realized that Wang Chong did say that the royal family's saint-grade healing medicine was precious and hard to come by in the outside world. But as the descendant of a general and minister, it might not be that difficult. This is the will of the heavens. To think that I would be saved by a noble son. Perhaps this is the arrangement that the heavens have made for me. The evil emperor smiled bitterly. He looked up at the ceiling. His expression changed and he didn't speak for a long time. Kid, are you willing to be my last disciple? As long as you agree to be my disciple, I will teach you everything I know. But in the future, I hope that you can promise me one thing. Wang. Hearing this, Wang Chong's heart thumped. No matter how slow he was, he understood what was going on when he heard these words. The thing that he had been waiting for the most had finally arrived. After the evil emperor was betrayed and plotted against, he felt that he wasn't strong enough to exact his revenge. Thus, he decided to take in his last disciple to deal with that traitor. The great yin-yang heaven creation art, this unparalleled technique, was finally showing a glimmer of hope to him. A great opportunity was beckoning to him. I'm willing. Wang Chong was overjoyed. Without hesitation, he knelt in front of the evil emperor. Ha ha ha, you saved my life. I will take you in as my disciple. This is the opportunity that we are destined to meet. I, Zhang Wenfu, swear that I will never take in anyone from the pugilistic world, or the sects as my disciples. But you are not one of them. What name did you say? Wang Chong. Haha, good. Wang Chong, you are my Zhang Wenfu's last disciple. As long as you don't betray me, I will never betray you. Master. Wang Chong hurriedly called out. Ha ha ha, I Zhang Wenfu finally have another disciple. The evil emperor roared with laughter. He had thought that he would die for sure. Who would have thought that there would be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel? Right now he was filled with hatred for those from the sections. Even if he were to die, he would never take in anyone from the sects as his disciple. But Wang Chong was different. He was a descendant of ministers and a member of the imperial court. He had nothing to do with the sections. In this life, he had never taken in a disciple from a noble family. But this matter was definitely worth a try. In the room, as he looked at the evil emperor, who was laughing without the slightest hint of scheming or defense, Wang Chong suddenly felt as if he had discovered another side of the evil emperor's personality. At this moment, a smile appeared on Wang Chong's face. Chapter 156. The evil emperor had an eccentric personality and killed people like scything flax. He was definitely a demon who killed without batting an eyelid. Wang Chong had already sensed this when he was near the Zhouji charcoal wine. If he wasn't an eccentric demon, there was no way he would have such a strong demonic aura around him. But even so, Wang Chong realized that there was a very good side to the evil emperor. The evil emperor might be paranoid, but once he gained his trust, he would trust you wholeheartedly without any reservations. If it wasn't for his personality, he wouldn't have been stabbed in the back by his former disciple, and he wouldn't have felt such betrayal. Only when a person was betrayed by someone he trusted the most would he feel so indignant. But if he was naturally paranoid and didn't trust anyone, he wouldn't have ended up like this. To think that he would accept me as his disciple so quickly. Wang Chong was also surprised. Being betrayed by his disciple and stabbed in the back, logically speaking, he should have been traumatized and wouldn't be willing to accept another disciple. In fact, he might not even accept another disciple for the rest of his life. So for this operation, Wang Chong was already prepared for a long battle. But the evil emperor's actions were out of Wang Chong's expectations. Wang Chong guessed that it was because he saved his life. In the evil emperor's heart, he was indebted to him for saving his life. Naturally, he was different from others. Another reason was that he was a member of the government, and not someone from the pugilistic world. This was the fundamental difference between him and that traitorous disciple of his. In addition, the evil emperor was eager for revenge and wanted to borrow his strength to take revenge on that traitorous disciple. That was the reason why he broke the rules and accepted him as his disciple. Disciple, remember that my name is Zhang Wenfu. Don't think that I don't have much strength now, and my strength has regressed to the origin energy realm. But before I was plotted against by those bastards and others, I was a Saint Martial Realm expert, and had hopes of breaking through to the God Martial Realm. In the entire world, I can do whatever I want, and there are only a few who can rival me. Back in Purple Bamboo Garden, although he had accepted Wang Chong as his disciple, he had only been with him for a short period of time. The evil emperor was afraid that his disciple did not know how powerful he was, and would belittle his master. Speaking of me in the past, whenever my name was mentioned in the martial arts world, there wasn't a single person who wouldn't pale in fright. Many of the elders and sect leaders of those sects don't even mention it, let alone others. Speaking of the glory of the past, the evil emperor had an air of arrogance between his brows, imperceptibly exuding the aura of a powerful and ambitious person of the past. Even Wang Chong couldn't help but feel intimidated by this sight. The evil emperor's aura was so powerful that it could swallow the heavens and the seas, and he looked down on everyone with disdain. It was completely natural to have such an imposing manner, even when he was in dire straits. One could only imagine how powerful he was when he was at his peak. By the way, you still don't know my name, right? The evil emperor. Wang Chong was just listening when he suddenly heard those words, and he almost blurted it out. Of course he knew his name, and he knew quite a bit about it. Fortunately, he reacted in time and bit his tongue. Otherwise he would be in deep trouble. My name is Evil. Sai, you can call me the evil emperor from now on. As the evil emperor spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and sighed deeply. He suddenly changed his mind. This time, Wang Chong couldn't help but be shocked. So the evil emperor isn't his real name. Wang Chong was surprised. He had always thought that the evil emperor's real name was the evil emperor. But it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. The evil emperor was just a name he made up on the spot. It was as if he wanted to cut himself off from his previous self. My disciple, I have a question for you, and you must answer it seriously. The evil emperor suddenly looked at Wang Chong with a solemn expression. Master, please speak. Wang Chong was taken aback. Even though he didn't understand what the evil emperor meant, he still answered immediately. My disciple, let me ask you, if I impart to you an evil technique that everyone hates, will you be willing to learn it? When the evil emperor said those words, his gaze was extremely solemn. The atmosphere in the room also became incomparably heavy with his words. Yes. Wang Chong thought about it seriously for a moment before replying. What if it's a great evil technique that kills countless people? The evil emperor asked again. I'm willing as well. Wang Chong didn't hesitate. The great yin-yang heaven creation art absorbs one's energy, and it's a great evil technique that steals the fortune of heaven and earth. Even if you become a demon that everyone curses and denounces as an evil cultivator, don't you care? At the end of his words, the evil emperor's face was as cold as ice, and his expression became extremely cold. It was as if Wang Chong had said something wrong. Haha, master, are you joking? Humans have good and evil, and so do martial arts? If it's used for good, it's good, and if it's used for evil, it's evil? Does it mean that if you practice the martial arts of the righteous path, the evil deeds you do will no longer be evil? At this moment, Wang Chong straightened his back and laughed. The evil emperor's gaze was sharp as he stared at Wang Chong, as if he was trying to see through his internal organs, to see if he was speaking the truth. Was he speaking the truth or not? Wang Chong knew what the evil emperor was thinking. Even if most people didn't have anything against the evil path, they wouldn't say it like he did. After all, the evil path had a bad reputation. But Wang Chong really didn't have that kind of thought. What evil path? What righteous path? It was just a human's internal strife. In the future, a calamity was coming, and the whole world would be in the flames of war, and no one would be spared. Evil path, righteous path, everyone would be nothing but ashes under the hooves of the iron hooves. Would one be spared just because they practiced the righteous path? Moreover, during the fusion of martial arts in the apocalypse, everyone had contributed their martial arts, and there were many evil path experts among them. Therefore, Wang Chong really didn't have anything against the evil path. There was no good or evil path in martial arts. Only people were good and evil. Facing the evil emperor's gaze, Wang Chong didn't avoid it. Time seemed to have stopped. The old and the young stared at each other, and neither of them spoke. This child, looking at the young man in front of him, the evil emperor suddenly had an indescribable feeling. In his life, he had seen all kinds of people. There were those who boasted shamelessly in front of him, but had a guilty conscience. There were those who swore in front of him, but were scared to death. There were those who said that they didn't mind the evil path, but actually didn't mean it. Even that evil traitor of his at the start said that he didn't mind, but his heart was filled with fear. But Wang Chong, this was the first time he met someone, and not only did he say that, he really thought that way. A person who didn't have any prejudice against the evil path. A person who believed that there was no good or evil path in martial arts. Only people were good and evil. This feeling, which he had never felt before, caused the great devil like the evil emperor to fall into a trance, and he had an indescribable feeling. To think that I, Zhang Wenfu, would be able to find a person who truly has no prejudice against the evil path in my later years. The evil emperor sighed, and there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He had always wanted to find a disciple of the evil path, someone who didn't have any prejudice against the evil path. But it was a pity that after searching for so many years, even the few disciples that he had carefully selected were all people who said one thing and meant one thing. In the end, the evil emperor almost lost all hope and completely gave up. He didn't expect that after being plotted against by his evil disciple and outsiders, at his lowest point, he would find a disciple that he liked the most. This is the will of the heavens. The evil emperor had an indescribable feeling in his heart, and the way he looked at Wang Chong was no longer as fierce, and slowly became gentle. The evil emperor realized that he might have found the disciple that he liked the most in his life. Now let's see how your luck is. The evil emperor looked at Wang Chong, and thought to himself. Swoosh! A palm shot out from the evil emperor's sleeve, and before Wang Chong could react, it wrapped around Wang Chong's wrist. Master! Wang Chong was shocked. The evil emperor's cultivation was unbelievably high. He had already fallen to the essence energy realm, but he still couldn't dodge his palm. Thinking about it, this was the third time that the evil emperor had made a move on him. But soon, Wang Chong realized that the evil emperor didn't have any ill intentions. His palm slid around his body, pinching the ends of his bones, the tips of his bones, and the joints. Wang Chong wasn't unfamiliar with this technique, as those seniors had tried it on him before. This was a bone-feeling technique, and it was used to measure a person's bone frame. Wang Chong stood there quietly, allowing the evil emperor to feel his bones. When choosing a disciple, the first thing to do was to feel his bones. This technique had been passed down from generation to generation, and the evil emperor was already very familiar with it. Only when one's bone frame was tested would he be able to teach the disciple according to their aptitude, and the martial arts to be imparted would be determined according to their aptitude. Otherwise, going too far would be as bad as falling short, and it might even destroy a person. Tiger bone. The first time his palm touched, the evil emperor was shocked. His eyes widened as he looked at Wang Chong with a look of surprise. Wang Chong actually had tiger bone. A 14 or 15-year-old youth was born with tiger bone. This was simply inconceivable. No, it's not tiger bone level 1, but tiger bone level 3, a tiger bone great perfection. The more the evil emperor touched, the more shocked he became. Wang Chong's strength wasn't high, and he was only an essence energy realm martial artist. But his bone frame was frighteningly good. It was common knowledge that bone frame was extremely difficult to raise. But for some reason, Wang Chong was already at tiger bone level 3 at such a young age. No, there's also a dragon form. The more the evil emperor touched, the more shocked he became. Initially, it was just tiger bone. But when he touched Wang Chong's heel, the evil emperor realized that Wang Chong's tiger bone actually contained a dragon form. Tiger bone dragon form. This meant that tiger bone wasn't Wang Chong's limit. Possessing a dragon form meant that Wang Chong's strength could continue to rise and eventually reach the dragon bone stage. Possessing a dragon bone meant that one possessed unparalleled potential. In the world of sex, they could cultivate almost 99% of the cultivation techniques without any qualms. The demonic emperor old man didn't expect that a descendant of a clan of ministers and generals would possess the tiger bone and dragon avatar. In that instant, the evil emperor was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that when he was in dire straits, a disciple that he unintentionally took in would possess such a rare top-grade bone frame. Among his 3 disciples, none of them had reached this level. More importantly, Wang Chong was only 14 or 15 years old. This meant that his bone frame could still be raised, and he still had boundless potential. Inconceivable. Inconceivable. The evil emperor was dumbfounded. Chapter 157. Ha ha ha. Even the heavens are on my side. The evil emperor was initially feeling a little depressed, but at this moment, all of that was gone. Chonga, do you know why that bastard betrayed me? The evil emperor suddenly turned to look at Wang Chong. Your disciple doesn't know. Wang Chong was really curious. He only knew that the evil emperor was betrayed by someone, and that it was his disciple. But he had never heard of the details, so he didn't know. I saw that bastard as my own son. I Zhang Wenfu maybe, but I never mistreat my disciples. That bastard's talent was lacking, so I imparted him the little yin-yang art. But he thought that I was hiding something, and purposely didn't impart it to him. He colluded with outsiders to betray me and assassinate me. That bastard didn't even think about it. Given his aptitude and talent, he had missed the best period to temper his aptitude. If I had imparted that secret art to him, he would have long gone berserk and died. To think that I treated him well. Yet he tried to assassinate me. They're trying to kill me. Thinking of the past, the evil emperor couldn't help but feel resentful. Wang Chong fell silent. The evil emperor wasn't a good person, but he felt that he had nothing to say to the people around him. He had nothing to say to the people around him. Perhaps he deserved what happened to him today. But no matter what, it was not his disciples' turn to deal with him. Master, don't worry. I will definitely avenge you, Wang Chong said solemnly. Ha ha, good. Chonger, I didn't misjudge you. Your words are more than enough. The evil emperor said happily as he took out his belt. It was at this moment that Wang Chong realized that the evil emperor's belt was actually a whole different world. It looked like an ordinary belt, but there were actually several secret chambers within it. The demonic emperor old man opened the secret chamber and took out a heavy, black pill about the size of a thumb. What is this? Wang Chong was greatly surprised. This is the last dragon transformation pill I have. Only those who had reached Tiger Bone 3-dam perfection stage could use it. I was originally prepared to give it to him, as long as that bastard behaved obediently and cultivated his root bone to the 3rd level of perfection of the Tiger Bone. After observing him for a period of time, and finding that there were no problems with him, I was going to give it to him. But this evil creature was too impatient. This dragon transformation pill is destined to have no fate with him. As the evil emperor spoke, he generously handed over the dragon transformation pill in his hand. Now, I will officially give you this dragon transformation pill. Chonger, consume this pill, and you'll be able to reach the dragon bone realm. At that time, I will teach you martial arts. Thank you, master. Wang Chong was overjoyed. He had thought that it would take a long time for him to reach the Dragon Bone realm. Who would have thought that happiness would come so unexpectedly? He would actually receive the Dragon Transformation Pill from the evil emperor. After swallowing the Dragon Transformation Pill, a majestic aura erupted from Wang Chong's body. This aura was incomparably sharp, and it carried with it a tyrannical and destructive power. The pills of the unorthodox are indeed different. This was the only thought that flashed across Wang Chong's mind before he exploded. Kacha kacha. The crisp sound of bones cracking echoed from within his body. Wang Chong felt as though every single cell in his body was burning with a blazing flame. Hold your breath and rein in the medicinal energy within your body. Don't move recklessly. An authoritative voice sounded beside his ear. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately stopped moving. A palm pressed on his Mingmen from behind. With a light pat, a warm surge of origin energy flowed into his body. Changing to another spot, the palm struck once more, and another surge of origin energy flowed into his body. Under the assistance of this external force, the blazing flames within Wang Chong's body felt as though a cold spring had been poured over him, and he immediately felt much better. Time passed slowly, and Wang Chong soon entered a tranquil state. After an unknown period of time, the crisp roar of a dragon suddenly echoed in the air. The air behind Wang Chong blurred, and a vague silhouette of a serpentine dragon could be vaguely seen. The serpentine dragon danced in the air, and it didn't take long for it to vanish. At the same time, Wang Chong opened his eyes, and a brilliant glint gleamed in them. I've finally reached Dragon Bone Realm. Wang Chong spread open his arms, his heart filled with joy. Soaring dragon in the sky, hidden dragon in the depths. Even though his cultivation was only at Dragon Bone 1 Dan, it was a qualitative change to Wang Chong's cultivation. At this moment, Wang Chong felt his body brimming with energy. His endurance, stamina, and explosiveness had all increased significantly. Even though he was still at Origin Energy Tier 7, his foundation was incomparably sturdy. I finally reached a realm that I couldn't reach in my previous life. Wang Chong thought to himself, overjoyed. With the dragon bone formed, he would no longer be restricted by his root bone anymore. Good, you finally succeeded. To be able to reach such a level of cultivation at 15, your future is bound to be limitless. An old voice sounded from behind. The evil emperor's face was pale, and his voice was weak. Thank you, master. Looking at the weakened state of the evil emperor, Wang Chong was moved. Master, rest assured, even if the entire world betrays you in the future, Wang Chong will never betray you. Hehe, I'm glad to hear your words. This is the foundation establishment page of Little Inyang art. Every cultivation technique has to be cultivated step by step, be it the righteous or unorthodox. Once you've built your foundation, I'll impart you the real Little Inyang art. Only after you've mastered the Little Inyang art can I impart you my true secret art. Thank you, master. Wang Chong didn't disturb him any further. After collecting the foundation establishment page of Little Inyang art, he left Shanhai and Meng Long behind to guard the purple bamboo garden before bidding farewell, paying respects to master. Just as Wang Chong was leaving Purple Bamboo Garden, hundreds of black-robed men were gathered together in a courtyard in the east of the capital. These men exuded a strong demonic aura, and they knelt down toward a masked black-robed young man on the roof. The walls of the courtyard were deep, and tall trees surrounded the area. No one would be able to notice this place from the outside. Listen up, all of you. On the roof, the masked black-robed young man exuded a cold aura. He raised his head and placed his hands behind his back. His expression was one of arrogance. That old fellow isn't dead yet. I want you all to infiltrate the capital of the Tang dynasty and search through every single street and alley. That old fellow's demonic cultivation technique is something that can't be washed away. I've already obtained a tracking technique. As long as that old fellow appears within a certain range of your surroundings, you will be able to sense him immediately. So, the masked black-robed young man waved his hand, and a ball of black flame immediately flew out. The flame split into thousands of fragments in the air, and let out ghostly wails as they flew down. In an instant, The hundreds of black-robed men below were all engulfed in flames. The black-robed men shuddered, and their aura immediately underwent a subtle change. Go! Yes, my lord. The hundreds of black-robed men immediately scattered in all directions. You all were too careless. Not long after the black-robed men disappeared, a black shadow suddenly appeared beside the masked black-robed young man. If a snake doesn't die, it will definitely be harmed. Do you all know what would have happened to us if that fellow didn't die? A black circle of light vaguely appeared in his mind. It was like a devil, and it looked extremely bizarre. How could I have known that the old fellow would actually cultivate a secret escape path? I've followed him for so long, and I've never noticed it. The masked black-robed young man said with an aggrieved voice. However, he won't be able to escape for long. His sea of chi is already broken, and with your great art of gathering and my vitality of the evil path, in less than 20 days, even if he's buried underground, I will still be able to find him. Let's hope so, the black-robed man said, and quickly disappeared from the rooftop. After finding the evil emperor and successfully becoming his disciple, Wang Chong felt much more at ease. In the following days, Wang Chong would practice the little yin-yang art every day. Then, he would go to the Ghost Tree District to play chess with So Yung-sun. And then he would go to the Purple Bamboo Garden to accompany himself. Have you seen anyone recently? Under the locust tree, So Yung-sun suddenly stared at Wang Chong said. What? Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. Looking at So Yung-sun's penetrating gaze, he suddenly had a bad feeling. Senior, are you joking? There are so many people on this street. Of course I have to see a lot of people every day. Is that so? So Yung-sun said calmly, but he didn't pursue the matter any further. Instead, he picked up a white stone and continued playing. It was as if nothing had happened. Who? Wang Chong heaved a sigh of relief. So Yung-sun was a war god, and also a top-notch expert. He might not be any weaker than the evil emperor. He had forgotten that one of them was righteous and the other evil, and they were as incompatible as fire and water. How could I have forgotten? Senior Su is an upright person who abhors evil. I've only been practicing the little yin-yang art for a short period of time, so I hope he doesn't notice. Wang Chong suddenly felt his scalp go numb. The discovery of the little yin-yang art was a small matter, but if So Yung-sun and the evil emperor discovered each other's existence, that would be the real problem. Oh no, Wang Chong thought. You're distracted. Suddenly an indifferent and calm voice rang in his ears. Wang Chong was stunned, and only then did he realize that he had made a wrong move. Hee senior, you're brilliant. You've made me lose my footing. Come, have a piece of braised beef. Wang Chong suddenly grinned, and without a word, he picked up a large piece of braised beef from the plate in front of So Yung-sun. So Yung-sun, who was originally silent and solemn, froze when he saw the braised beef that Wang Chong picked up. Haha, come let's play. Wang Chong thought to himself that it was a close shave, and quickly placed a stone to distract So Yung-sun. The game continued from noon to afternoon, and So Yung-sun still suffered a crushing defeat. Senior, you've lost again. Wang Chong laughed heartily, and just like the previous time, he bid farewell and left. So Yung-sun only laughed twice, and did not speak again. But after Wang Chong disappeared, So Yung-sun's smile disappeared, and his face became extremely solemn. Fong Hong. Master, what's wrong? Behind the tree, the old servant Fong Hong walked over. This child has strayed into the wrong path. During this period of time, some people from the wrong path must have looked for him. Bring me a black kite, I have a use for it. So Yung-sun said coldly, and a hint of murderous intent flashed across his face. In the Tang dynasty, if one wanted to have a successful career and become a powerful official, one had to be upright and not make any mistakes. Wang Chong did not know that he had strayed into the wrong path, and even tried to hide it from him. Little did he know, he had long seen through it. This child's talent in the art of war was not easy, and even he was no match for him. In the future, he would definitely be a pillar of the imperial court, and he would not allow anyone to lead him astray. Master, are you saying that he has cultivated in the wrong path? The old servant Fong Hong was shocked. Yes, don't reveal this matter in front of him. I will handle it myself. So Yungsun said. Yes, master. The old servant Fong Hong lowered his head. Chapter 158. Rumble Rumble. A carriage bearing the Wang family's insignia traveled along the streets. In the carriage, Wang Chong sat motionlessly, silently cultivating the foundation manual of the little Inyang art that the evil emperor had given him. This cultivation technique wasn't as easy as he had imagined. In fact, it was even more difficult than any cultivation technique that Wang Chong had cultivated in his previous life. Fortunately, the evil emperor had warned him that everything was difficult at the beginning. The little Inyang art was difficult at the beginning and easy at the end. As long as he could get past the initial hurdle, the rest would be much easier. Waves of yuan qi flowed through his body. Under Wang Chong's control, these yuan qi constantly collided against the various acupoints in his body. None of these acupoints coincided with the cultivation technique that Wang Chong was cultivating. All of them were unconventional, and not a single one was a normal acupoint. No wonder this cultivation technique is called an evil cultivation technique. Just these acupoints alone exude an evil aura. Wang Chong thought to himself. Waves of yuan qi flowed through his body. An hour later, a light pop sounded from within his body. Finally, a new acupoint in Wang Chong's body was slowly opening up. With the opening of this acupoint, the yuan qi in Wang Chong's body also grew thicker. Just as Wang Chong was immersed in the breakthrough he had just achieved, the origin energy in his body suddenly fell into disarray. This feeling. Wang Chong's eyebrows twitched. Stretching out his right hand, he pulled open the curtains and looked behind him. Amidst the dense crowd, Wang Chong immediately saw a cold and suspicious-looking man staring in his direction. On their bodies, Wang Chong could sense a familiar aura. It's someone from the evil path. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. He immediately understood what was going on. In the distance, the other party quickly retracted his gaze. But to Wang Chong, this was enough. Change direction southeast. Wang Chong knocked on the carriage. After so many days, this was the first time he encountered someone following him. Let's go and take a look. In the crowd, two figures followed closely. The carriage passed through the streets and alleys, but it did not go to Purple Bamboo Garden. Instead, it went to an increasingly remote place. Hey, he asked for it. It just so happened that we couldn't find an opportunity to make a move, but he actually gave us the opportunity himself. Although this kid isn't that old fellow, for him to be able to cause my lord's yuan qi to fluctuate, he definitely has something to do with that old fellow. As long as we capture him, we'll definitely be able to get the location of that old fellow's land. That the two of them sped up and followed closely behind. Their speed was no worse than Wang Chong's carriage. In just a short while, the surroundings became densely forested, and the number of pedestrians gradually decreased. In the distance, one could faintly hear the sound of pigs being slaughtered. This was a slaughterhouse, because there were a lot of animals. Other than the butchers and the vendors who delivered the goods in the evening, very few people would come here. Creak! When they were about 1,000 meters away from the slaughterhouse, Wang Chong's carriage came to a stop. Courting death. Behind him, the two disciples were overjoyed. They unsheathed their swords and charged at the carriage without hesitation. But even though they were fast, Wang Chong was even faster. Boom! The carriage window shattered, and Wang Chong, as one with his sword, shot out of the carriage like a cannonball. Halfway through, he had already used the single-character consecutive slash. His speed was even faster and more vicious than the other two. Not good. Careful. That the two disciples only saw a flash of light, and in the next moment, Wang Chong had already appeared above their heads. Clang, clang, clang. Wang Chong moved with his sword, moving as fast as lightning. In a short period of time, he was actually able to fight one against two. His position was unpredictable. Sometimes it was east, sometimes it was west, sometimes it was south, sometimes it was north. The direction of his sword was completely unpredictable. After an intense exchange, not only was Wang Chong fine, but Wang Chong had also left 7 or 8 wounds on their bodies. Bang! In the final blow, Wang Chong's figure flickered, and he directly flew back over 30 meters, increasing the distance between him and the two disciples. Courting death. Two of the corrupt disciples immediately rushed over. Gong Yu, hurry up and attack, Wang Chong suddenly said. Whoosh! As if in response to Wang Chong's voice, a figure as faint as smoke flashed, and with a flash, it flew out from the crown of a nearby tree. Chi! Without too many words, just a single sword strike. In the instant that disciple was distracted, the sword immediately pierced through the heart of the disciple at the back. His movements were clean and precise. Clang! Almost at the same time, Wang Chong shot out, using the single-character consecutive slash to cut through the defense of the other disciple. Borrowing the momentum of the other disciple's parry, Wang Chong somersaulted behind him and stabbed his sword into the disciple's right chest. Ah! Amidst a miserable scream, the second disciple clutched his chest and fell to the ground like a wooden pillar. Wang Chong's sword arts were strange, and he was unable to defend against it at all. Speak, who are you people? Why are you following me? Wang Chong stepped on the disciple, and with his right hand, he placed his sword on the disciple's neck. With a slight movement, a stream of blood immediately flowed out. Pooey, do you think that I will tell you? Wang Chong spat out a mouthful of blood, and the disciple's face was filled with rage. Don't worry, you will tell me, Wang Chong said calmly as he turned around. Gong Yu, I'll leave this person to you. As an assassin, obtaining intelligence was also one of their skills. Wang Chong didn't have to wait for too long before Mayasame Ayaka managed to obtain the intelligence she wanted from the other party. Master, there's a problem. The other party seems to have sent quite a few people to investigate an old man. These people are just one of them. On top of that, they seem to have a unique method to sense that old man. Mayasame Ayaka walked over with a bloodied sword in her hand. There were some things that she didn't reveal. While those people were looking for an old man, they managed to track down Wang Chong. Clearly, Wang Chong had some kind of relationship with that old man. I understand. You should return for now. I'll deal with this matter myself. Wang Chong waved his hands. Mayasame Ayaka nodded before retreating into the surrounding forest, disappearing from sight. Only Wang Chong was left standing on the spot, deep in thought. Those fellows sure came quickly. Wang Chong stood alone in the clearing, his head raised, his mind in thought. In front of Mayasame Ayaka, Wang Chong didn't reveal the truth. But Wang Chong knew that the master that the two unorthodox disciples spoke of was probably the traitor that the evil emperor spoke of. More than 300 men, and they're able to lock onto their location through their aura. If that's the case, the purple bamboo garden isn't safe anymore. Recalling the evil emperor, Wang Chong couldn't help but worry. This won't do. I'll have to discuss this matter with Master first. Wang Chong immediately set off. He knocked Mayasame Ayaka unconscious and threw her into the carriage before heading back to the purple bamboo garden. That's about it. A moment later, in the purple bamboo garden, Wang Chong recounted everything that had happened along the way. At the same time, he tossed the captured unorthodox disciple to the ground. Facts spoke louder than words. Tossing the unorthodox disciple to the ground was more convincing than anything else. That traitor. Looking at the unorthodox disciple on the ground, the evil emperor's body trembled in anger. How could he possibly not recognize the technique that he had imparted to him? The cultivation techniques that these people were using were all from his lineage. Do you really think that I won't be able to deal with him, just because my chi-si has been destroyed? The evil emperor stretched out his palm, and a black aura immediately seeped out from the unorthodox disciple's body, and seeped into the evil emperor's body. The unorthodox disciple's face paled, and his skin swiftly turned gray. Then he fell motionless. On the other hand, the evil emperor's aura grew a little stronger after receiving this surge of origin energy. Master, Wang Chong was astonished. Even though he had seen the might of the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art in his previous life, the evil emperor's cultivation was clearly much stronger than his. His cultivation had fallen to the origin energy realm, yet he was still able to absorb the energy from this heretical disciple's body through the air. Chonger, you had better remember this. Our lineage's unorthodox cultivation technique has a total of 4 tiers. The first tier is your current foundation establishment realm. The second tier is the little yin-yang art. It requires the help of an external object to absorb the other party's cultivation technique. The third tier is like what I am doing now, absorbing the other party's cultivation technique from afar. Even though my cultivation has regressed, my cultivation hasn't regressed. I can still use it. However, above the third tier, there's still the fourth tier, which is even more powerful. However, I have never succeeded in cultivating it. Legend has it that the founder of our lineage succeeded in cultivating it, and it seems to have something to do with space-time. I have never cultivated it before, so I'm not too sure either. You will advance step by step through the 4 tiers, and once you reach the 4th tier, you will be a God Martial Realm expert. The entire world will follow your lead. As the evil Emperor Old Man spoke, his face swiftly turned ashen. The origin energy that he had absorbed previously flowed out of his body, like a punctured balloon. Master. Wang Chong was still listening intently at the start, but upon seeing this sight, his face warped in shock. He hurriedly supported his master, the evil emperor. Don't worry. My spirit sea has already been destroyed, and I can't retain any origin energy in my body. Forcefully using the great yin-yang heaven creation art will result in a backlash. That wretched disciple knew of this, which is why he dared to send such trash to deal with me. The evil emperor supported himself with a hand on the table to stabilize his body. Master, are you storing origin energy in your acupoints? Wang Chong suddenly asked. You know of the myriad spirit sea art as well? The evil emperor stared at Wang Chong in shock for the first time. However, he soon nodded. This is one of the unorthodox techniques of our lineage. Since ancient times, only the sect master has known of it, and it has always been extremely difficult to cultivate. My spirit sea has already been destroyed, and I am unable to store origin energy in my dantian. Only by replacing my spirit sea with acupoints can I store origin energy. This is also my only choice. Before Wang Chong, the evil emperor did not hold back at all. Wang Chong was stunned speechless. He had long heard of the technique of storing origin energy in acupoints. However, this technique was extremely mystical, and Wang Chong had only heard of it, but he had never seen it before. Even the seniors in his previous life had said that this kind of cultivation method was unconventional and mysterious. It was not something that ordinary people could cultivate. No wonder he was able to imbue origin energy into Zhouwen. Chapter 159. Master, if you successfully cultivate the myriad spirit sea art, will you be able to recover your martial arts? Wang Chong suddenly asked. It's not that easy. The myriad spirit sea art is fraught with difficulties. It's just a way to replace the sea of qi. If not for the fact that the qi waves have been broken, no one would bother cultivating the myriad spirit sea art. Using acupoints to replace the sea of qi is a fantasy. I've never heard of anyone succeeding in this. At least I haven't. The evil emperor smiled bitterly. He looked at Wang Chong and patted him on the shoulder. Child, I understand what you're thinking. Although we've only been master and disciple for a dozen days, I'm glad that you're thinking this way. Wang Chong stood beside the evil emperor. When the evil emperor said this, Wang Chong saw a glint in his eyes, as if he had made up his mind about something. Wang Chong was no stranger to this expression. It was an expression that only a person would have when they were ready to die. The myriad spirit sea art is extremely difficult to cultivate, and few succeed. In other words, he will never be able to recover his previous cultivation. Could it be that he wants to cultivate the myriad spirit sea art to a certain level and impart it to me like he did to Zhouwen? Wang Chong's heart suddenly skipped a beat. In his previous life, the evil emperor's imparting technique required a great sacrifice. He had to give up all of his cultivation and life in order to help another person. It seemed that although he had changed a lot, there were some things that hadn't changed at all. The evil emperor would still give up his cultivation to help himself. Just like Zhouwen in his previous life. This made Wang Chong's heart feel indescribably conflicted. Although he had initially come for the great yin-yang heaven creation art, the evil emperor had undoubtedly treated him as a true disciple. He loved and cared for him without holding anything back. This made Wang Chong's heart skip a beat. No matter what, I must stop him, Wang Chong thought to himself. Regarding the evil emperor, Wang Chong's understanding of him was limited to the fact that he possessed unparalleled cultivation base and top-notch techniques. But at this moment, Wang Chong's feelings towards him were completely different. In the depths of his heart, Wang Chong's feelings towards him were completely different. Imperceptibly, Wang Chong had already decided that this was his true master. Master, what are the requirements to cultivate the myriad spirit sea art? Wang Chong asked. There are many conditions that need to be met. A martial artist's aptitude, talent, perseverance, and perception were the most basic. There was also a huge amount of spiritual energy, extraordinary luck, and some external magic treasures, pills, and so on. Chonger, if you're interested, I can also teach you this technique. The evil emperor misunderstood Wang Chong's meaning. Spiritual energy. Wang Chong didn't say a word, but his mind was in turmoil. Although it's hard to say for other things, if it's spiritual energy, then I really don't lack spiritual energy. Wang Chong thought of the spirit vein that he had discovered not too long ago. Although he didn't know the specifics of the myriad spirit sea art, it was definitely closely related to the spiritual energy of the world. Based on Wang Chong's past experience, as long as there was sufficient spiritual energy, the success rate of the myriad spirit sea art would be greatly increased. Master, this disciple doesn't mean that. However, that person has sent his disciples to search the entire city. Master is no longer safe in the capital. This disciple knows of a place where Master can hide temporarily. Furthermore, it would be beneficial for Master's cultivation of the myriad spirit sea art. Wang Chong said. Oh, the evil emperor raised his eyebrows. Wang Chong chuckled. Without hiding anything, he revealed what he knew. Hearing about the spirit vein, the evil emperor was greatly moved. He looked at Wang Chong in disbelief. Spirit veins were incomparably precious, 1 in 10,000. Just like hundreds of thousands of mountains, one might not even find one. For Wang Chong to be able to discover a spirit vein at such a young age, and even buy it in advance, this was simply inconceivable. To the evil emperor, this was something he didn't even dare to think about. This is unbelievable, to think that such a thing could actually happen. The evil emperor was shocked. This disciple's abilities were getting more and more shocking. It was beyond his understanding of young Master Wang Chong. However, there was one thing he was right about. If he had the help of a spirit vein, it would be greatly beneficial for his cultivation of the myriad spirit sea art. Everything will go according to your arrangements. The evil emperor didn't insist anymore. Then Master, rest well. I will arrange for someone to send you out of the city tomorrow. Wang Chong smiled. After lingering in the purple bamboo garden for a moment, Wang Chong left. Not long after Wang Chong left in the carriage, the evil emperor retracted his smile and revealed a solemn expression. Walking out of the room, the evil emperor raised his head and looked towards the sky above the purple bamboo garden. He saw a huge black bird circling above. As though it had sensed something, it flapped its wings and flew towards the west of the city. Beast, you still want to leave after coming here? The evil emperor laughed coldly. He raised his finger, and a wisp of black chi shot out from his finger. This wisp of chi wasn't very strong. It was completely at the origin energy realm. However, for some reason, it was unbelievably pure and condensed. As the chi flew through the air, it didn't dissipate or weaken. It was just like when it shot out from the finger. Pooh! The finger chi pierced through the layers of void, catching up to the black kite in the air, piercing through it. Blood chi burst out in the air, and the black kite's cries stopped abruptly, falling straight down from the sky. Seeing the black kite descend, the evil emperor's expression relaxed slightly. He had long noticed the black kite. Even though he had suffered a huge change and his strength had declined, his mental will, senses were still present. For such a huge bird to appear above his head, it was as though a torch in the middle of the night. Even though there were many houses between them, he could still sense it clearly. This black kite is definitely not sent by Chonger. There is no need for him to do so. There is a high chance that someone was tailing him to discover me. The demonic emperor old man's brow slowly creased, as he recalled the powerful sword intent Wang Chong had exuded. That sword intent was so profound that Wang Chong didn't notice it at all. In fact, he didn't even feel anything. However, the evil emperor felt it. He had noticed it the moment Wang Chong walked in. That sword intent didn't attack Wang Chong, but it contained a strong warning, as though warning him not to get close to Wang Chong. Sword intent, this person's swordsmanship is really high. At the very least, he is at the pinnacle of the Saint Martial realm. He isn't any weaker than me. To think that the Tang dynasty would have such a formidable figure hidden in the capital. The evil emperor muttered to himself as a hint of fear flashed across his eyes. For one to reach such a level in swordsmanship, the condensation of one's sword chi should be at least at the level of being able to condense into threads. Even at his peak, he would have to tread carefully if he were to encounter such a powerful swordsman. This was because of the fact that the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art was most unwilling to absorb the sword chi of a swordsman, and it was also the most difficult to refine. This disciple of mine sure knows an incredible figure. The evil emperor recalled how protective the other party's sword intent was toward Wang Chong, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly. The other party's sword intent was pure and imposing, clearly indicating that he was a cultivator of the righteous path. There was a high chance that this matter had something to do with the little Yin-Yang art that he had imparted to Wang Chong. Clearly, the other party had misunderstood him. Wang Chong possessed exceptional aptitude. For him to be able to reach Tiger Bone 3 Dan at the age of 15, it was truly a rare talent. The evil emperor didn't believe that the other party wouldn't be able to see through his aptitude. Clearly, the other party had taken a liking to his disciple as well. Looks like this disciple of mine is really popular. However, it's impossible for me to give up on him. Since you want to snatch him, let's do it on our own. The evil emperor chuckled, and a domineering aura emanated from his eyes. That's right. The other party's swordsmanship was indeed impressive, but the evil emperor wasn't a pushover either. In the past, it would have been a joke if anyone dared to snatch his disciple. Since the other party wanted to take Wang Chong as his disciple, then bring it on. Turning around, the evil emperor placed his hands behind his back and walked into the house. The black kite is dead. Almost at the same moment the evil emperor returned to the house, the war god So Young Sun suddenly opened his eyes beneath a large locust tree in the west of the city. Beside him, the old servant Fong Hong was shocked. How is this possible? The black kite can fly up to a height of more than 10,000 zhang. Even arrows can't reach it. How could anyone harm the black kite at such a high distance? The black kite is indeed dead. There's no doubt about it. The other party's cultivation is extremely high. Not only did he kill the black kite, he even destroyed the sword intent I left on the black kite and erased my aura. Right now, we only know the general area, but we have no way of ascertaining his exact location. So Young Sun spoke nonchalantly, as though he was talking about an insignificant matter. But the old servant by the side was shocked. How is this possible? To think that there would be someone in the capital who would be able to destroy Master's sword intent. Fong Hong's eyes widened. He was truly taken aback. The old master was getting on in years, and he had long left the royal court and given up on martial arts. But Fong Hong knew that not only did the old master's martial arts not regress, it was even improving. What the old master cultivated wasn't sword chi, but sword intent. Sword chi was easy to cultivate, but sword intent was difficult to cultivate. After so many years, the old master's cultivation had already surpassed the level of swordsmanship in the eyes of ordinary people, reaching an even higher realm. This was precisely the reason why the black kite was infused with sword intent instead of sword chi. Sword intent was sharper than sword chi, and it was harder to erase. But just now, the old master said that his sword intent had been erased by someone. How could there be such a person in the world? That Chong Gongzi, how did he know such a formidable figure? Chapter 160. At the moment, the entire capital was filled with spies planted by Wang Chong's third senior. Based on what his master, the old man of the demonic path, had said, it was impossible for third senior to accomplish this feat alone. This matter involved a Saint Martial realm expert, and even the Wang clan wouldn't be able to deal with it. The sects had always been a lawless land in the world of the Tang dynasty. Regardless of whether it was his previous life or his current one, Wang Chong didn't know much about this world. He only had a vague understanding of it. I hope that master can safely pass through the city gates and reach the spirit vein. In the study, Wang Chong subconsciously tapped his finger on the table as he thought. The city gates were an important barrier to entering and exiting the capital. Wang Chong didn't believe that they wouldn't send someone to guard it. However, the city gates had always been guarded by the imperial army. Wang Chong had already informed Uncle Li Lin and Zhao Fengchen in the royal palace. Given their current standing in the royal palace, it was entirely possible for them to work together with the guards to create a ruckus to chase away the unorthodox disciples. I've already sent Li Zhuxin and Mayasame Ayaka. There shouldn't be any problems, Wang Chong thought. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. He should have gone to such an occasion as well. However, it was a pity that he had just cultivated the little Yin-Yang art. If the two of them were to go together, things would only get more troublesome. Reporting. Just as Wang Chong was worrying, a Wang clan guard suddenly rushed in with a head full of sweat. Young master, the old master has successfully come out of seclusion. That's great. Hearing those words, Wang Chong's face flushed in agitation, and he clenched his fists tightly. With his master out of seclusion, Wang Chong had finally gotten rid of a worry in his heart. Where's Li Zhuxin and Mayasame Ayaka? Wang Chong asked. Li Zhuxin and Miss Mayasame have followed young master's instructions and left to escort the old master. They'll be returning in 10 li, the guard replied respectfully. Hearing this, Wang Chong let out a long sigh. Those who participated in this operation were all old guards of the Wang family. Many of them had been with the Wang family for more than 10 years, so there was absolutely no problem with their loyalty. As for Li Zhuxin, he was familiar with the matters of his previous life, so there was definitely no problem with him. Even if he had to die, he would do it for you. As for Mayasame Ayaka, even though she wasn't as loyal as the guards of the Wang clan, and Wang Chong wasn't as familiar with her master as Li Zhuxin, she still didn't know much about this matter. The order that Mayasame Ayaka had received was to work together with Li Zhuxin. The rest had nothing to do with her. As long as she still wants to find a solution to the Spectre Steps, her loyalty shouldn't be any lower than Shen Hai and Ming Long, Wang Chong thought to himself. Different people would have different ways of controlling the sword, and for Mayasame Ayaka, Wang Chong was different from others. Spectre Steps had a fatal flaw, and Mayasame Ayaka knew this better than anyone else. As such, as long as she wanted to preserve her own life, she would be more reliable than anyone else. Whether I can change my fate in my previous life or not will depend on teacher, Wang Chong thought. Wang Chong didn't know what the evil emperor had gone through in his previous life, but for him and Zhou Wen to be pursued by that traitorous disciple of his, it was impossible for things to have gone smoothly. But in this life, everything had changed. To his first teacher, the massive spirit vein was the greatest form of filial piety that Wang Chong had for him. With the support of a massive amount of spiritual energy, the success rate of his teacher's myriad spirit sea art would definitely be much faster than in his previous life. This was also Wang Chong's greatest hope. A gust of wind blew across the room, and Wang Chong soon recovered from his daze. He turned his gaze to the little Yin-Yang art on the table. This was the advanced version of the little Yin-Yang art that the evil emperor had given to Wang Chong after Wang Chong met with the evil emperor in the morning, and it was the complete version as well. Wang Chong wasn't able to cultivate any further than that. The great Yin-Yang heaven creation art had to be cultivated step by step, and if he didn't cultivate the little Yin-Yang art to its peak, even if it was given to Wang Chong, he wouldn't be able to cultivate it. Looking at the sutra on the table, Wang Chong fell into a trance. It was a quiet morning. While most people thought that everything was peaceful, not many people knew that a commotion had occurred at the capital's gates. The commotion left as quickly as it came. In the end, they captured a few unorthodox cultivators and locked them in jail. The city gates swiftly returned to normal. I'm late. Not too long after the evil emperor left, a tall black figure stood outside the purple bamboo garden, as though a massive sword piercing through the heavens. Looking at the silent and empty purple bamboo garden, a cold glint flashed across So Young-sun's eyes. Perched on his shoulder was a black kite. It had a sharp beak and metal wings, and it looked a little uneasy. And beneath his feet was the corpse of the black kite that the evil emperor had killed yesterday. Staring at the empty purple bamboo garden, So Young-sun finally turned around and disappeared amidst the thin morning mist. Time slowly passed. The demonic emperor old man's departure was like a magnet that drew away all the storms. Wang Chong's life slowly returned to normal. However, unbeknownst to Wang Chong, in a place where he couldn't see, another massive storm was brewing. A few days later, bang! The door to Wang Chong's study was suddenly pushed open from the outside. A pretty maid appeared at the door, her forehead beaded with sweat. Xiaozhu. Wang Chong stopped his cultivation and looked at the door in surprise. He recognized this maid. She was his mother's maid, Xiaozhu. She was very intelligent and would never disturb him on normal days. Moreover, Wang Chong remembered that he had said that no one was to disturb him without his permission. Young master, Madam wants you to go to the main hall now. It's urgent, go now. Hurry. Before Wang Chong could ask, Xiaozhu held the door frame with both hands and hurriedly said a bunch of things. Her voice was fast and anxious. She seemed to be in a hurry. Wang Chong was shocked. This Xiaozhu was not usually so rash. What had happened for her to be in such a hurry? Wang Chong was very curious. Young master, hurry. Xiaozhu stomped her feet and urged him again. Seeing that it was his mother's order, Wang Chong did not dare to delay. He took off his loose training clothes and changed into a new one. Then, he hurriedly followed Xiaozhu to the main hall. It seems like it. The door to the main hall was tightly shut. 20 zhang away, Wang Chong's nose twitched. Suddenly, he caught a strong scent of incense in the air. This is the scent of high-grade Dao incense. Why would there be Dao incense in the house? What kind of esteemed guest is here? Wang Chong suddenly recognized it and was astonished. The houses of nobles, and the rich would all have Dao incense. However, the Dao incense in the house of nobles was different. Usually, only extremely esteemed guests would use it. In Wang Chong's impression, even the king of Song wouldn't use this Dao incense when he visited the Wang clan. But now Wang Chong actually caught the scent of Dao incense. What in the world is going on? Wang Chong's curiosity was piqued. Jia. Pushing open the door, Wang Chong immediately saw his mother kneeling on the ground, a respectful expression on her face. Around her were the maids, and servants, all of whom were also kneeling. Before her stood a palace eunuch with cloud patterns. Behind him were more than 10 chamberlains of imperial insignia, dressed in golden armor and exuding a powerful aura. When Wang Chong pushed open the door and walked in, the creaking sound attracted everyone's attention. Many pairs of eyes looked over from all directions. Wang Chong's eyes met with the palace eunuch, and his heart skipped a beat. His face immediately warped. This was a eunuch of the palace, and a yellow-robed eunuch at that. Yellow was the color of dragons. In the palace, there was only one kind of eunuch who dared to wear such cloud patterns, and that was the head eunuch who served the holy emperor. This was the first time Wang Chong had seen one in his life. Unfilial son, hurry up and kneel before me. His mother's stern voice sounded from the guest hall. Fearing that she would anger the head eunuch of the palace, Wang Chong's face darkened. He hurriedly stepped over the door sill and walked in. Greetings, eunuch. Wang Chong walked over and hurriedly bowed, his mind a little uneasy. Even though they were eunuchs, they represented the emperor. If there wasn't anything important, they would never appear outside the palace. Gongzi received the decree. The head eunuch glanced at Wang Chong and said calmly. His face was expressionless, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Just like his mother, Wang Chong knelt down. However, his target wasn't the head eunuch, but the yellow imperial decree in the latter's hands. By the will of the heavens, the emperor declares, the young master of the Wang clan, Wang Chong, is to enter the palace immediately to meet the emperor. Thus, the head eunuch picked up the imperial decree on the silver plate opened it, and read it out before Wang Chong and his mother. There was only a simple sentence on the imperial decree, and after that there was nothing else. That's it. Wang Chong raised his head and looked at the head eunuch in astonishment. Gongzi, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and receive the decree. The head eunuch looked at Wang Chong with disdain. Seeing that Wang Chong was looking at him, his snow-white eyebrows furrowed in displeasure. Wang Chong, receive the decree. Wang Chong hurriedly stood up, lowered his head, and respectfully received the imperial decree from the head eunuch. Only then did the head eunuch nod his head in satisfaction. Gongzi Wang, hurry up and take a bath. Follow me into the palace to meet the emperor. Wang Chong understands. Thank you, eunuch. An incense's time later, Wang Chong finally walked out of the Wang family residence. He was dressed in a white robe, a purple gold crown, and a jade pendant. The courtyard was silent. All of the servants had retreated, leaving only the head eunuch and the chamberlains of imperial insignia. Wang Chong lifted his head to look at the sky. Dark clouds hung low in the sky, creating a stifling atmosphere. The wind is blowing. Wang Chong looked up at the sky and muttered to himself. At that moment, at a place where his eyes couldn't see, Wang Chong suddenly caught a whiff of the wind. Who? As though responding to Wang Chong's thoughts, a powerful gust of wind swept the fallen leaves across the courtyard, causing Wang Chong's robe to flutter. Amidst the rustling of the leaves, Wang Chong stepped into the carriage in the courtyard. Chapter 161. The carriage of the palace was extremely luxurious, and the floor was covered with a golden and red Persian carpet. It was said that during the era of Emperor Taizong, the Western Abbasid Caliphate royal family presented it to Emperor Taizong. The inner walls of the carriage were also covered with an extremely luxurious tapestry. The entire carriage was beautiful and extremely comfortable. However, Wang Chong wasn't in the mood to enjoy it. Seated in the carriage, Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down for a long time. Regardless of whether it was his previous life or this life, the current Holy Emperor was a legend of the Central Plains, a myth. At the same time, he was also the greatest emperor in the history of the Central Plains. It was in his hands that the Tang Empire made great efforts to govern and put good officials in important positions. Thus, the Tang Empire reached its current level of political and military success. It was prosperous and was worshipped by people from all over the world. The wealth of the entire Tang dynasty allowed it to dominate the world and look down on all the other countries. It was under his hands that the entire Tang dynasty became the most powerful era in the history of the Central Plains. However, it was also this person who, in his later years, indulged in wine and women, neglected the affairs of the court, placed treacherous officials in important positions, alienated the capable, and pushed the empire into the abyss of destruction. It was the same person, but how could he change so much? His earlier and later years were like two different people. This was the deepest doubt in Wang Chong's heart, as well as an unsolvable riddle in the hearts of the future generations. In his previous life, Wang Chong was just an ignorant profligate scion. He couldn't even enter the royal palace, needless to say meet the emperor. Later on, when Wang Chong came to his senses and worked hard, the Wang clan had already declined. He didn't even have the qualifications to meet the officials of the royal court, needless to say, the Holy Emperor. Later on, when Wang Chong finally became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, the greatest Holy Emperor in the history of the Tang dynasty had already turned into smoke, disappearing into the dust of history. For his entire life, Wang Chong was destined to never meet the greatest Holy Emperor in the history of the Tang dynasty. This was the deepest regret in Wang Chong's heart. However, as a person who had lived two lives, everything had changed. This was the first time Wang Chong had entered the palace to meet the emperor. "I wonder why your majesty is looking for me." Wang Chong felt uneasy. As he sat in the carriage, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Wang Chong had some vague guesses in his heart, but he could not confirm them. The summons this time was too sudden. Just as he was feeling apprehensive, the carriage suddenly stopped. A faint sound came from outside. "Greetings, eunuch. Hi, Lord Wang." That it seemed like someone had stopped the carriage. The carriage of the palace was no small matter. This person actually dared to stop the carriage of the palace. His identity was definitely no small matter. Uncle. After listening for a while, Wang Chong abruptly sat up, greatly surprised. One of the voices belonged to the head eunuch, and the second voice was Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen. Wang Zhen was an influential official in the royal court, and he had the authority to discuss politics. His position was high, and his standing was extremely high. This standing wasn't just in the royal court. It seemed like Big Uncle was even able to speak a few words in the royal court. The two of them spoke with hushed voices, and at the very end, Wang Chong only heard the voice of the head eunuch. Lord Wang, hurry up. Remember not to take too long. Hua. Just as the head eunuch spoke, Hua, the carriage door opened, and Big Uncle Wang Zhen hurriedly squeezed in with a grave expression. Chonger, time is of the essence, so listen carefully. There are some important points that you must remember well in this trip to the palace. Wang Zhen sat opposite to Wang Chong, and he hadn't even taken off his morning robe yet. Despite knowing Big Uncle for so long, this was the first time Wang Chong saw such a grave expression on his face. It was even more formidable than when the Yao clan schemed against the Wang clan. Lord Prime Minister has already gathered all of the officials and generals in the royal court to request His Majesty to pass the regional commander system and the policy of utilizing the WHO. However, it has been refuted by your grandfather. Wang Zhen went straight to the point and threw a heavy blow at Wang Chong. Wang Chong's body jolted in shock. It really was the regional commander system. However, what Wang Chong was concerned about wasn't this. Instead, he was concerned about Big Uncle's words, refuted by your grandfather. Even though Wang Chong didn't know much about politics, as someone who grew up in a clan of ministers and generals, he knew what it meant. The regional commander's system and the policy of utilizing the WHO were proposed by the current prime minister. Since grandfather refuted this matter, it meant that the Wang clan was on the verge of falling out with the current prime minister. Not only so, in the Tang dynasty, grandfather was aloof from worldly affairs. His students and acquaintances were scattered all over the world, and he wielded a unique status. Even though he rarely participated in the politics of the royal court, he wielded immense influence in the royal court. This time, he has stood out and publicly opposed the regional commander system and the WHO system. This is something that has never happened before. Wang Chong was well aware that the impact this matter would have on the imperial court was not as simple as his big uncle had said, that it would only be a rebuttal. What is His Majesty's stance on this matter? Wang Chong suddenly asked. You're smart. You managed to think of the crux of the matter so quickly. Wang Zhen praised. His nephew's intelligence truly left him in awe at how he was able to understand the situation so quickly. However, that's where the problem lies. Even though the officials were caught off guard by your grandfather's reaction, causing the royal court to be in chaos during the morning assembly. More importantly, the Holy Emperor didn't express his stance on this matter at all. No one knows what the Holy Emperor is thinking. Wang Chong exclaimed in realization. Now, do you know why I was so surprised and anxious when His Majesty summoned you to the royal palace? Wang Zhen said. He had only received the news after the morning assembly ended. Just as the court was dismissed, he received news that the head eunuch of the royal palace had arrived at the Wang family residence, and he was summoning Wang Chong to the royal palace to meet the emperor. This news caught him off guard, and he was extremely shocked, as well as deeply uneasy. Almost instinctively, Wang Zhen felt a sense of danger. Entering the palace to meet the emperor was a matter of great importance to any aristocratic family or clan. The Son of Heaven doesn't summon anyone for no reason. It would be fine if the emperor and his subjects did a good job, but if they didn't, it would spell disaster. In the previous dynasty, it wasn't the first or second time that a clan fell out of favor due to such a matter. Wang Chong had no experience in this aspect, so Wang Zhen couldn't help but worry. Time was of the essence, so Wang Zhen could only try to hail a carriage on the road. Wang Chong, this matter concerns our entire Wang clan. Not just you and your father, but me, your big aunt, your little uncle, and everyone else as well, Wang Zhen said grimly. He couldn't tell whether Wang Chong's entry into the royal palace was a blessing or a curse. He could only secretly hope that nothing would go wrong with this matter. So you better listen to me. Once we enter the royal palace, answer whatever His Majesty asks you. Even if you don't know anything, you must say that you don't know anything. Whatever His Majesty doesn't ask, you mustn't say anything. Don't act on your own. Don't try to act smart. And don't try to show off your talents. After saying those words, Wang Jin stared fixedly at Wang Chong. The atmosphere in the carriage was incredibly heavy. Wang Chong could sense the worry in his big uncle's heart. Even with his eyes closed, Wang Chong could sense the unease in his heart. The summons of the Son of Heaven is no small matter, especially when this matter involved the current Prime Minister, grandfather, and all the civil and military officials in the court, as well as the Han and Wu. More importantly, this matter involved the future fate and lifeline of the great Tang. Big uncle, don't worry. I know what I should do. Wang Chong closed his eyes, and after a moment of silence he spoke. His expression was calm, and it gave people a strong sense of influence. It's good that you understand. Wang Jin was taken aback for a moment before nodding his head, after which, he swiftly explained the details of the meeting with His Majesty. Wang Chong listened attentively to his words. Lord Wang, it's time. A sharp voice sounded from outside the carriage. The head eunuch of the Cloudweave Guards knocked on the wall of the carriage, and a crisp sound echoed. Wang Jin didn't dare to dally. After giving a few more reminders, he quickly dashed out of the carriage. Under the escort of a dozen chamberlains of imperial insignia, the carriage headed toward the royal palace. I hope that nothing will go wrong with this child. Wang Jin looked at the departing back of the carriage worriedly. The royal palace of the Tang dynasty was grand and majestic. The thick walls of the palace, which were several dozen zhang tall, glistened under the sunlight. Sitting in the carriage, Wang Chong parted the curtains, only to see palaces, halls, and patrolling imperial army soldiers. The entire royal palace had a majestic and austere air to it. Looking at the majestic royal palace, Wang Chong suddenly felt a little dazed. In truth, Wang Chong had been to the royal palace before. Even though all that was left of the palace back then was a pile of rubble and rubble. Seeing the majestic, and complete palace before him, Wang Chong couldn't help but feel an indescribable sorrow in his heart. Mountains and rivers crumble in the wind, one's life floats in the wind, and the rain hits duckweed. These were the two lines of a poem that Wang Chong recited back then. The royal palace was the center of the entire Tang dynasty, as well as the symbol of the unparalleled authority of the entire Central Plains. The fall of the royal palace didn't just represent the fate of a city, it also represented the fate of the entire nation. The past is in the past. This is my life. No matter what price I have to pay, I won't allow it to repeat itself. Wang Chong clenched his fists so tightly that he didn't even realize that his fingernails were digging into his flesh. Wang Gongzi, the Taiji Hall is right in front. His Majesty the Holy Emperor is waiting for you inside. Make sure not to offend the Holy Emperor when you arrive. The voice of the head eunuch sounded from outside the carriage. Thank you, Gongzi. Wang Chong understands. Recovering from his daze, Wang Chong nodded. Wang. After an unknown period of time, without any warning, a bizarre feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. Inexplicably, Wang Chong felt the world around him darken. In an instant, a powerful energy that could shake the world gushed toward him. This feeling was as if he had suddenly entered another world from one world. Chapter 162. The pressure was so dense that even the air seemed to have turned into mud. The further he went, the greater the pressure. In just a short period of time, Wang Chong felt the pressure increase exponentially. Young Master Wang, please. We've arrived at the Taiji Palace. At the same time, the voice of the head eunuch came from the front. It was calm and emotionless. Dong. A finger lightly knocked on the wall of the carriage, and the door opened by itself. A ray of light shone through the door, but it was silent outside. An invisible tension filled the air. Wang Chong held onto the sides of the door and climbed out of the carriage. Lualulu, the carriage rumbled. Almost at the same moment that Wang Chong walked out, The palace eunuch drove the carriage away. After the carriage left, Wang Chong's eyes lit up. A majestic golden palace stood tall in front of him, as though it was in the clouds. At the four corners of the huge palace, there were four golden-armored generals with disdain in their eyes. They were like gods guarding the four corners, guarding the huge palace in the center. The four golden-armored generals exuded a storm-like pressure. Huge, brilliant, and resplendent halos shot out from beneath their feet, making the hall look like a kingdom of gods. The Emperor's Dragon Guards. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Dragons had their guards, and so did the Emperor. The four golden-armored generals were the most mysterious of the Emperor's Dragon Guards. Legend had it that each of the Emperor's Dragon Guards was a Saint Martial realm expert, and each of them possessed a secret technique of the royal family. They were the Emperor's most loyal servants and subordinates. The immense pressure that Wang Chong felt before came from these Saint Martial realm Emperor's Dragon Guards. Taking in a deep breath, Wang Chong calmed his mind and raised his head. Nearby, he could see a white jade stairway winding its way up to the massive golden gate of the palace. From afar, Wang Chong saw a few majestic golden words in front of the palace. Taiji Palace. Wang Chong muttered to himself as he recognized the handwriting. Each of these three words weighed more than 1,000 caddies. Just by looking at them from afar, one could feel the heaviness in one's heart, as if a huge mountain was pressing down on it. The residence of the Son of Heaven, the great ultimate temple. This was the first time Wang Chong had seen Taiji Palace with his own eyes. It was also his first time seeing the center of this world. At this moment, the most famous holy emperor of the entire Tang dynasty and Middle-earth was only inches away from him. Wang Chong couldn't help but feel excited. Once upon a time, meeting the greatest holy emperor of the Tang dynasty was Wang Chong's greatest wish in his previous life. But at that time, Wang Chong was destined to miss this wish. Now that everything had started all over again, Wang Chong finally had the chance to fulfill his wish. Being born in this world, how could one not know the supreme ruler of this world? Whether it was prosperity or decline, he was the architect of all of this. If Wang Chong wanted to fulfill his mission and change the fate of this world, he couldn't avoid this supreme ruler of the Tang dynasty. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. Just as Wang Chong was in a daze, a sudden clap of thunder seemed to explode in the air, and a loud voice resounded through the world. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. As soon as his words fell, the echoes reverberated in all directions. His loud and clear voice resounded everywhere. Wang Chong's mind shook, and he finally came back to his senses. Stepping onto the white jade stairs, he walked step by step toward the majestic, towering Taiji Palace that seemed to be above the clouds. The pressure on his shoulders overlapped and followed him like a shadow. With every step Wang Chong took, the pressure on his body increased, and even his footsteps became exceptionally heavy. The Emperor's Dragon Guards. To get close to the Holy Emperor, one must first pass through the Emperor's Dragon Guards. The white jade stairs were the steps of the Emperor. Without a strong will or an extremely strong cultivation, one would never have the chance to meet the Emperor. In the past, countless people had been stopped on this white jade stairs. In his previous life, Wang Chong had already missed the chance to meet the Emperor. This time, Wang Chong didn't want to miss it. Tap, tap, tap. The entire Taiji Palace was quiet. Aside from Wang Chong, there was no one else. The world was quiet, and the sound of footsteps echoed throughout the world. Time passed slowly. In Wang Chong's perception, the Taiji Palace in front of him was like a huge storm, and the closer he was to the storm, the stronger the pressure. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead without him realizing it. But Wang Chong was unaware. This was a white jade staircase with thousands of steps. Wang Chong had never walked such a long staircase before. It was so long that it felt like countless centuries with no end in sight. Sweat flowed out without him realizing it, even drenching his clothes. The pressure on his shoulders also overlapped, as if there were layers upon layers of huge mountains. Wang Chong's essence was constantly depleting, and his stamina was constantly weakening. His feet felt like they were filled with lead, making them extremely heavy. To Wang Chong, this short journey felt like a lifetime. Buzz. After some time bzz, Wang Chong's mind trembled as the world around him suddenly changed. An energy that caused the world to change color, solemn, dignified and vast, suffused with a supreme aura, erupted in front of him and engulfed the world. Wang Chong's mind trembled as he suddenly snapped out of his daze. Only then did he realize that he had unknowingly reached the end of the white jade staircase. In front of him, a majestic and divine golden hall stood before him. In this hall, Wang Chong sensed an inconceivably powerful aura. Although he had already restrained it, the aura he emanated was still so powerful that it made one's heart tremble. In his previous life, Wang Chong had experienced countless battles of blood and fire. He had experienced countless trials of life and death. His will had long been tempered to become extremely tenacious. However, in front of this aura, Wang Chong could not help but feel a deep sense of reverence. It was as though he was facing the heavens and earth. Before this aura, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. In that instant, Wang Chong couldn't help but fall into a daze. Some distant memories, like dregs, suddenly floated up in his mind at this moment. Inexplicably, Wang Chong once again recalled that controversial topic in his future life. In the world of the Tang dynasty, in the Central Plains, who was the true #1 expert? In the apocalyptic era, was he the one who received orders to turn the tide and become the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, leading the last soldiers of the Central Plains to battle against the foreign cavalry for 10-odd years, and ultimately slaying Kong Yaluoshan? Or was he the one who fought against 10,000 alone, and in the final moments of his life, he valiantly killed tens of thousands of foreign invaders? Or was it someone like his master, the demonic Emperor Old Man, who, though unknown in the imperial court, had shone brightly in the martial arts world, becoming an invincible expert who dominated the world? Or was he the unfathomable Snow White, an unprepossessing holy monk from the Uzum Plateau? In an instant, countless famous figures that Wang Chong knew flashed through his mind. But in the end, they were all denied by Wang Chong. In this world, if there was one person who could suppress everyone else and be called the world's undisputed #1 expert, then Wang Chong believed that this person could. And it could only be one person. The supreme and unfathomable Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven, of the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong deeply remembered that those seniors who helped him to the position of Grand Marshal had once said that if the Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven, of the Tang dynasty was still alive, if the greatest emperor in the history of the Central Plains was still alive, if that was the case, this war might turn out to be a completely different situation. Because in the history of the Tang dynasty, the Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven, was the only one who had managed to reach the divine martial realm and survive. The difference between the holy martial realm and the divine martial realm was like the difference between heaven and earth, between man and God. The two were incalculable. Most of the experts in the holy martial realm did not have the qualification to reach the divine martial realm, even at the end of their lives. Among them was Wang Chong of the previous generation. There were various opinions about the Son of Heaven's attempt to reach the divine martial realm in the Tang dynasty. Some people said that the attempt had failed. But Wang Chong had personally heard those seniors say that they had indeed felt the aura of the divine martial realm from the Holy Emperor. Therefore, whether the Holy Emperor's attempt was a success or a failure, or a half success or a half failure, no one would ever know. Judging from the time, it should have happened not long ago. Wang Chong raised his head and murmured in his heart. Wang Chong had once hated and complained about the Holy Emperor of the Tang dynasty. But in the end, when he walked to the front of this Tai Chi palace and was very close to the Holy Emperor of the Tang dynasty, Wang Chong found that in the end, there was only respect left in his heart. Perhaps he had made many mistakes. Perhaps he had single-handedly caused the destruction of this empire. But in the end, what Wang Chong remembered was still the founder of the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. At the same time, he was also the most proactive and enterprising pioneer in the history of the entire Middle Earth. The doors of the Tai Chi palace were wide open. Wang Chong took a deep breath, and, against the mountain-like pressure, stepped through the doors of the Tai Chi Palace. Rumble. The moment he stepped through the doors, the world shook. It was just a single step, but Wang Chong felt as if he had stepped from one world into another, from another space to another. In an instant, Wang Chong felt a powerful aura, an existence that was much more powerful than himself in his previous life. A supreme existence that was even more unfathomable than So Young's son and the evil emperor. In an instant, the whole world seemed to fall silent. In Wang Chong's world, there was only that unreachable figure. Wang Chong greets the Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven. Chapter 163. The entire Taiji Palace was silent. Wang Chong could feel a pair of dignified and disdainful eyes looking down from above, piercing through the void and landing on him. From this gaze, Wang Chong could only feel one thing, unfathomable. Since ancient times, accompanying a sovereign is like accompanying a tiger, and the might of the heavens is unfathomable. Wang Chong could not sense any emotion from this gaze. He was also unable to fathom what the Son of Heaven of the Tang dynasty was thinking. In the silence of the palace, Wang Chong remained kneeling on the floor unmoving. In the silence of the palace, Wang Chong could hear his own heartbeat. After an unknown period of time, which felt like an instant, but also like countless centuries, Wang Chong finally heard an authoritative and thunderous voice. Wang Chong, I heard that you are opposed to my regional commander system and the Hu system. The voice was indifferent, devoid of any emotion. Wang Chong's heart trembled. When a subject submitted a memorial, he had to answer it. However, the Holy Emperor's words weren't easy to answer. On a smaller scale, Wang Chong was only expressing his opinion on the Holy Emperor's words. On a larger scale, Wang Chong was opposing the Holy Emperor. Yes, Wang Chong hesitated, but he still replied. Speak. That voice spoke calmly, authoritatively, and majestically. Yes, Wang Chong lowered his head and replied respectfully. The air in the palace churned, and a gust of wind blew in. Wang Chong's heart began to tremble along with this gust of wind. For some reason, the words Big Uncle Wang Zhen had said on the carriage echoed in his ears once more. The more you speak, the fewer mistakes you'll make. The less you speak, the less mistakes you'll make. If His Majesty asks, you must answer. If you know, you must say that you know. If you don't know, you must say that you don't know. If you know, you must only say that you know. You don't understand politics, so you don't know anything. It's my first time meeting the Emperor. I don't want to be meritorious, but I want to avoid making mistakes. This matter concerns our entire Wang clan. It's not just you and your father, but me, your big aunt, your little uncle, and everyone else. You mustn't be reckless. Remember this. These words were the culmination of Big Uncle Wang Zhen's decades of experience. Even though it sounded slippery, it was the best advice for an inexperienced scion like Wang Chong. The more you speak, the more mistakes you will make. The less you speak, the less mistakes you will make. Entering the palace to meet the emperor was no small matter. With the Wang clan's current status, they no longer needed Wang Chong's help in this matter. As long as he didn't make any mistakes, everything would be fine. It was just that. Thinking back to his previous life, Wang Chong couldn't make himself remain silent. The Jidushi system and the Hu system were the root causes of the chaos in the Tang dynasty. Now he finally had a chance to meet the Holy Emperor and have a chance to remonstrate with him. If he missed this opportunity, he would never be able to forgive himself for the rest of his life. At this point, Wang Chong hesitated no more. Your Majesty, the Jidushi system and the Hu system are the root causes of the chaos in the Tang dynasty. This policy must not be implemented. In the next moment, Wang Chong kneeled on the ground and recounted his thoughts in detail, even including the words he had used to persuade the elders in the Four Quarters Embassy, without holding anything back. No one knew better than Wang Chong how dangerous the Jidushi system would be in the future. Wang Chong knew that this was an opportunity for him to change history. Your Majesty, the Hu have formed their own faction. The Hu protect the Hu, and the Hu promote the Hu. Once this precedent is set, it will surely bring disaster to the Tang dynasty. Your Majesty, please reconsider. After saying those words, Wang Chong kneeled on the floor, not moving in the slightest. These words came from the bottom of his heart, and they were Wang Chong's true thoughts. Those who had never experienced that chaotic era would never be able to imagine it. To Wang Chong, the words he said to his grandfather and the Holy Emperor weren't just a possibility or a prophecy. They were a reality that would happen in the future. However, other than him, no one else in the Central Plains knew of it. Even more so, no one knew that the fate of the empire rested on a single thought of the Holy Emperor. The hall was silent, devoid of any sound. After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong finally heard a voice. "I understand. You can leave now. When you return, write a memorial of what you have just said and submit it to me." This was the third and final sentence that Wang Chong had heard since entering the Taiji Palace. Yes, Wang Chong was taken aback. After which he bowed and left the hall. Beneath the white jade steps, a gust of wind blew, and Wang Chong's entire body turned cold. Only then did he realize that even his shoes were wet. Accompanying a sovereign was like accompanying a tiger. The pressure in the Taiji Palace was simply too great. In there, every step Wang Chong took was even more difficult than a major battle. But this wasn't what Wang Chong was concerned about. "I wonder if His Majesty has listened to me." Recalling what had just happened, Wang Chong's heart was filled with worry. Wang Chong was in a daze. Even when he came out at the end, Wang Chong didn't know whether he had succeeded or failed. He wondered if His Majesty had listened to him at all. Accompanying a sovereign is like accompanying a tiger. In the entire hall, Wang Chong had said quite a bit, saying everything that needed to be said. But from the moment he entered to the moment he came out, Wang Chong had only heard 3 sentences. "Wang Chong, I heard that you oppose my regional commander's system and the WHO system. Speak. I understand. You can leave now. When you return, write a memorial of what you have just said and submit it to me." Just based on these 3 sentences, Wang Chong couldn't tell whether the Holy Emperor was delighted or furious. He couldn't tell whether he had listened to what he had said or not. Furthermore, what was the meaning behind the other party's request for him to write a memorial? "Wang Gongzi, please." A familiar voice sounded. Wang Chong snapped out of his daze and saw a golden carriage parked not too far away. A eunuch stood by the side, and it was the head eunuch who had escorted him into the royal palace. The heart of a sovereign is truly unfathomable. Wang Chong sighed as he lowered his head and entered the carriage. The carriage left the royal palace, and eventually, Wang Chong was sent to the Wang family residence. Not long after returning to the residence, Wang Chong wrote all of his thoughts, as well as his thoughts on the financial system, into a memorial. That very night, Wang Chong's memorial was sent to the royal palace along with the head eunuch. After doing all of this, Wang Chong tossed everything aside and began to cultivate the complete version of the little Inyang art. Hong Long. A single stone raised 1,000 ripples. Wang Chong had never imagined that on the very next day, his memorial would appear in the imperial court and be circulated to all the officials, causing a huge uproar in the court. Preposterous. Wang Zhen, is this the opinion of your Wang clan? Your Majesty, this humble subject wishes to impeach Wang Zhen, and that Wang Chong. That day in the royal court, Imperial censor Zhou Zhang suddenly bellowed furiously and grabbed Wang Zhen's beard. Hua. In an instant, a huge commotion broke out in the royal court. No one had expected Zhou Zhang to make a move before so many people. Lord Zhou, let go. Zhou Zhang, what are you doing? How dare you act so audaciously before the Son of Heaven? That the officials surrounded Wang Zhen and Zhou Zhang tightly, and the situation was chaotic. But before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. At the same time that the officials surrounded Wang Zhen and Zhou Zhang, Wang Zhen and Zhou Zhang were stunned. Putong. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the ground shook violently, as though a meteor had crashed into the ground. Amidst the crowd of officials, a tall and sturdy figure knelt heavily on the ground like a falling jade pillar, prostrating himself in worship. Your Majesty, this humble subject Abusi has made great contributions to the Tang dynasty. I am loyal and devoted to you. Your Majesty, I beseech your Majesty to uphold justice for this humble subject. Following Abusi's words, thud 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 thud, The officials in the royal court knelt down like wooden pillars. In the 200-odd years since the establishment of the Tang dynasty, the Hu and Han had lived together. Not only were there Han officials in the royal court, there were also Hu generals. Wang Chang's memorial caused all of the Hu generals in the royal court to kneel with their heads, facing the holy emperor. In an instant, the originally noisy imperial court fell into a deathly silence. All of the officials stared at the kneeling Hu officials, speechless. Only Wang Zhen stood in the royal court, his clothes in disarray. Looking at the kneeling Hu officials, his face warped in shock. But this wasn't the end of the matter. Walala! Countless pigeons, kites, jays, eagles flew out from the capital. There had never been a day when so many birds flew out from the capital. The birds that were transmitting messages blotted out the sky and covered the sun, covering the entire sky. Upon seeing this sight, even the elders who had lived in the capital for decades were dumbfounded. Preposterous! 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 In the Qixi governor's manor in the rear of the western regions, a blue-eyed, bearded Hu with a domineering aura bellowed in rage. I have contributed greatly to the Tang dynasty, while guarding the western regions. How dare a brat humiliate me like this? How hateful! He deserves to die. Hong Long, the green-eyed Hu raised his palm, and with a loud boom, the metal table in front of him shattered into pieces. The immense force caused the ground to tremble, and a huge cloud of dust burst out of the governor's manor, rising nearly 100 zhang into the air. The Hu formed their own faction. The Han promote the Hu, and the Hu promote the Hu. Feng Changqing, aren't you a Han official? This brat is spouting nonsense. He deserves to die. In the vast desert of the western regions, a 5,000-strong armored army was on the move. At the very front of the army was a beautiful and handsome general with an aura that was as vast as the mountains and as vast as the seas. He looked no different from a Han, but the Xinlua jade token by his waist revealed his identity. He was the Anxi Vice Protector General Duke of Miyun Gao Xianji. He was the only Xinlua Vice Protector General in the entire Tang dynasty, as well as the highest standing of the Xinlua people in the Tang dynasty. In the military world of the Tang dynasty, he wielded unparalleled authority. Anxi Vice Protector General Gao Xianji was known for his elegant bearing, and even when he was angry, he maintained a calm expression. However, Gao Xianji raised his right hand, and with a crack, the neck of a warhorse broke. Without any warning, it suddenly fell to the ground motionless. Chapter 164. In the new city bordering Uzan and Longyu of the Tang dynasty, a valiant general with a pair of eagle eyes and a tall nose harumphed coldly as a piercing glint flashed across his eyes. The Big Dipper rises high in the sky, and Geshu Han carries his saber in the night. In the western border of the Tang dynasty, there was no one who didn't know of the Big Dipper General Geshu Han. Dressed in golden armor and carrying a long saber by his waist, he was the Big Dipper General Geshu Han. There were many generals in the Great Tang Empire, but there were very few who could be called great generals and had a status above the other generals. As the vice commander of the Big Dipper army, the Big Dipper General Geshu Han's standing was unimaginable. A memorial submitted by a 15-year-old youth had stirred up a storm in the royal court, shaking the entire royal court. It was impossible for Geshu Han to be unaware of such a huge matter. In truth, he had been standing on the city walls for a very long time with the news delivered by a messenger pigeon in his hand. Another repeat of the events in Chang'an. Wang Chong. Yet another commander of Chang'an. Damn it. Geshu Han's face steeled as he gripped the letter tightly. Back then, during the reign of the previous emperor, Geshu Han's mother passed away, and he lived in the Tang dynasty for several decades, admiring the elegance of the Tang dynasty. When his mother passed away, Geshu Han learned the customs of the Han and observed mourning for 3 years, but he was mocked by a lowly official in the capital, commander of Chang'an. He said that the Hu learned the customs of the Great Zhou, and that they were nothing more than monkeys. Geshu Han was extremely filial to his mother, and he viewed this matter as a great humiliation. It was precisely because of this that Geshu Han threw away his brush and joined the army. And now, Wang Chang's memorial reminded him of that lowly official in Chang'an. Boom. Cold killing intent flashed across Geshu Han's eyes. Boom. A burst of flames burst into the air, reaching a height of more than 10 zhang, and incinerating the letter in Geshu Han's hand. In the 200 years of the Tang dynasty, there were innumerable who. Wang Chang's memorial had incurred the wrath of countless who. Wang Chang's memorials flew in from all directions like snowflakes. This would have been fine, but Wang Chang's memorial had not only enraged these people. Shishi Protector General and Anshi Protector General Fuming Lingmeng, Vice Protector General Gao Xianji, Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, Biting Vice Protector General and Sis Han. These Hu great generals all held influential positions in the Tang dynasty. When the angry memorials of these protector generals, deputy protector generals, and great generals appeared in the court of the Tang dynasty, the nature of the matter instantly changed. Even Wang Jin's face paled. The impact of this matter far exceeded his expectations, and he was in a state of losing control. Not only that, the Hu had been vassals for so many years, and this had affected not only the Hu, but the Han in the royal court as well. Many of the imperial censors did not dare to attack Duke Jiao, so they targeted the 15-year-old Wang Chong. In an agitated tone, they said that Wang Chong was ridiculing the court. Some of the other officials were even more agitated. They said that Wang Chong and the Wang clan harbored malicious intentions and intended to divide the Han and Hu against each other. This was detrimental to the Han, and they demanded that Wang Chong punish them severely, even including Wang Chong's big uncle Wang. General many people had not expected this matter to develop to this extent. The consort Taijin incident had only affected the civil and military officials of the royal court, as well as the local officials. Its influence was limited to the Han. However, Wang Chong's memorial pushed the regional commanders system and the Hu into a corner, dragging all of the Hu and their border generals into the mix as well. In terms of influence, this matter had far surpassed the consort Taijin incident. Deep in the night, all was quiet. While many people in the capital were still sleeping, the Wang family residence was brightly lit by candles. Chong, you can't. You have to hide for a while. In Wang Chong's study, Big Uncle Wang Zhen was pacing back and forth, his hands behind his back. His eyes were sunken, and there was a faint green tint to them. It seemed like he had not rested for a long time. The regional commander's system, and the Hu great generals, have already far surpassed the expectations of you, me, and the old master. The repercussions of this matter are too great. These imperial censors are not only going to interrogate you and me, they are even planning to impeach the old master. Wang Zhen's anxiety was undisguised. Only he himself knew how much pressure he had been under in this period of time. Gao Xianji, Foman Linta, Geshu Han, and Sis Han. These esteemed Hu great generals had not only sent memorials to the court, they had also sent him letters of criticism. Wang Zhen was an important official of the court, and his status was definitely not low. But these people, not a single one of them had a lower status than him. Only the heavens knew how much pressure Wang Zhen had been under when all the Hu great generals' letters of criticism had arrived at his residence. And this was only a small part of it. Every morning, those imperial censors and Han generals who sympathized with the Hu would surround him, either cursing or impeaching him. Even his court robes would be torn. In his decades in the court, Wang Zhen had encountered all sorts of political storms. But this time, it was completely different. Wang Zhen could smell an intense danger. Humph! They dare! Behind his desk, Wang Chong clenched his fists in fury. He already knew everything, including the torrent of curses from the Hu and the censors accusing him of interfering in court affairs. From today onwards, the Tang dynasty, the Central Plains, and all the Hu including him, would be irreconcilable enemies with the Wang clan. The Tang dynasty had been established for more than 200 years, and the Hu had already infiltrated every aspect of the country. Now that Wang Chong had offended these people, it was easy to imagine how his future would turn out. But regardless of whether it was the wrath of the Hu generals or the censors, Wang Chong wasn't afraid of them. Wang Chong only felt grief and indignation. Yes, he was impeaching the Hu, The regional commander's system and the WHO system had always been beneficial to the WHO. Anyone who opposed these two policies would be harming the interests of all WHO. Wang Chong wasn't surprised at all that he would incur the scolding and questioning of so many WHO. What Wang Chong was truly concerned about were the Han who supported the WHO and opposed him. Blinded by a single leaf, unable to see Mount Tai, stuffed with beans in one's ears, unable to hear the thunder. That was right. Qi Kuan, He Li was indeed a loyal official. Ashina Shi Er had also contributed greatly to the Tang dynasty. These two were good WHO officials under Emperor Taizong. But who was the one who fought against Emperor Taizong? The Han. It was the WHO. Who was the one fighting against the Tang dynasty to the north of the Yin Mountains and west of the Tsong Mountains. Was it the Han? It was the WHO. It was the Yizin's men. Regardless of the era or space-time, there would always be some people who forgot their identity and sympathized with their enemies more than their own people. They could easily put themselves in the shoes of their enemies and sympathize with them. But it was only towards their own people that they were exceptionally harsh. They would often berate and criticize coldly, saying that they didn't see the big picture, didn't understand etiquette, and lost the demeanor of a great country. Divide the Han and the Han, pit the WHO and the Han against each other? Was there a need for him to create a conflict between the WHO and the Han? Wasn't this already the truth? Wouldn't it be these who would incite a rebellion and tear apart the Tang dynasty in the future? Wouldn't it be these who would govern the military towns in the future? Never overestimate the loyalty of the WHO. This was the lesson that Wang Chong learned from his previous life. When the Tang dynasty was at its peak, they were willing to serve the Tang dynasty. But when the Tang dynasty fell, don't expect them to be willing to serve the Han to the death. Instead of thinking about how to protect themselves, they were willing to relinquish their authority to the WHO, allowing them to fight for them on the battlefield and protect them. How foolish and laughable was that? Might makes right. Regardless of which era it was, any people who didn't understand this principle deserved to die. Chong-er, this isn't the time to let your emotions affect your decisions. You have to find a way to hide. Try not to show yourself in this period of time. Wang Zhen said solemnly. Hide? Where can I hide? If the censors were to impeach me and the royal court summons me, how can I not go? Wang Chong said calmly. Seated behind his desk, his expression was calm and fearless, as if he had already thought through everything and made all preparations. Looking at the composed Wang Chong, Wang Zhen felt an indescribable emotion welling up in his heart. Once upon a time, he had always treated Wang Chong as an immature 15-year-old child. Thus, he had always treated Wang Chong harshly, often reprimanding him. Even after Wang Chong schemed against the Yao clan, Wang Zhen still felt that he was too young to bear such great responsibility. But at this moment, Wang Zhen suddenly realized that while Wang Chong might still be young, his heart had already matured into that of an adult. Even he was unable to maintain his composure regarding the regional commander's incident and the WHO matter. But this nephew of his, as the instigator of all of this, was actually able to maintain his composure, even coldly stating the unavoidable truth to him. This was something that even he was unable to do. Chong-er, you've finally grown up. At this moment, Wang Zhen couldn't help but sigh. Not even he realized that at this moment, his view of Wang Chong had greatly changed. Unknowingly, Wang Zhen had begun to view him as a trustworthy peer, who he could discuss things with. Chong-er is right. I also feel that he has no way of avoiding this matter, nor can he avoid it. A voice came from the side. Wang Chong's little uncle, Wang Mi, was seated by the side, a contemplative look on his face. He had rushed back yesterday. With such a major incident happening in the Wang clan, it was impossible for him not to return. At this sort of time, it was always better to have another person to discuss things with. But he didn't understand the matters of the court, so he couldn't interfere in the conversation between Wang Chong and his older brother. But instinctively, Wang Mi felt that what Wang Chong said was correct. Chong-er, I hope that little uncle feels that you were too rash in this matter. In truth, you didn't have to write that memorial at all. Impossible. I had to write that memorial, and I had to write it this way. Before little uncle could finish his words, Wang Chong interrupted him. Wang Chong wouldn't regret this matter at all. There were some things that one had to do regardless of the price, even if one knew that it would be filled with thorns. Once he did it, Wang Chong wouldn't regret it. Sigh. Wang Mi and Wang Jin sighed deeply. He had even stopped a carriage along the way to persuade Wang Chong to enter the royal palace, but he didn't think that Wang Chong would still go through with it. Furthermore, it was done in a way that he didn't expect. But what was done could not be undone, and even the old master had agreed to it. There was nothing Wang Jin could say about it. Pung! Just as they were in the midst of their discussion, a loud bang sounded from outside. It seemed like someone had barged in. The trio in the study raised their heads, but before they could stand up, boom! With a resounding boom, the door to Wang Chong's study was smashed into pieces by a powerful force. Before the shocked gazes of the trio, several chamberlains of imperial insignia barged in from the door. You are Wang Chong? The few of them stared at Wang Chong coldly as they spoke impassively. I am. Wang Chong was bewildered. He couldn't make sense of what was going on. Very well. Wang Chong, you've been arrested. Come with us. The chamberlains of imperial insignia said coldly, after which, they stepped forward and grabbed Wang Chong from both sides, ready to leave. What? Wang Jin and Wang Mi were shocked. At this moment, Wang Jin saw the token hanging on their waists. It was a black prison character. They were the prison guards of the royal palace. Wait a moment. What crime are you arresting him for? In the annals of the Tang dynasty, you dare to arrest someone who has never committed a crime. Wang Jin bellowed furiously. How dare you interfere in the affairs of the royal court? One of the royal guards took out a golden order to detain him. This is a warrant from the royal court. There are the signatures of the Minister of War, Minister of Punishments, Prime Minister and Censor. More importantly, there's also His Majesty's seal. What? Wang Jin's body trembled. Looking at the dragon seal on the warrant, he felt as though he had been struck by lightning. He couldn't believe his eyes. Lord Wang, you are an important official of the royal court. I hope that you won't obstruct the royal court's decision to detain a serious criminal. Otherwise, don't blame us for capturing you as well and throwing you into the imperial prison. The final words of the royal guard left even Wang Mi dumbfounded. Imperial prison? Not the Bureau of Punishments? Not the Court of Judicial Review? And the imperial prison of the royal palace? Wasn't that a place where only criminals on death row were locked up? Wang Mi was dumbfounded, but the prison guards didn't fall into a daze. They sealed Wang Chong's acupoint and dragged him out of the room. In just a few moments, they had already disappeared from sight. A long time later, a sorrowful cry sounded from the Wang Chong residence. At this time it was daybreak. Chapter 165. Dong. In the inner courtyard of the imperial palace, the dragon drum and dragon bell rang together. The news of Wang Chong's arrest and imprisonment spread. Before the morning court session began, an old official with white hair appeared in the inner palace. His hair and beard were all standing on end, his whole body was trembling, and his face was full of grief and indignation. His white head kept banging against the dragon drum and bell, causing blood to flow out. There has never been a precedent of disrespecting the imperial court. Your Majesty, are you going to set a precedent and be punished for your words? The old censor Hitai banged the drum and bell again and again, his expression incomparably furious. As an old minister of the previous dynasty, and an imperial censor during the reign of the late emperor, He Ting was loyal and devoted. He admonished the late emperor with a straight face, and once received the imperial elixir edict iron voucher. It was just that he was getting on in years, and was now over 70 years old, so he resigned and returned home. He hadn't been involved in politics for 30 years, and he didn't expect something like this to happen. Hearing about Wang Chong's matter, the old imperial censor was incomparably furious. Almost as soon as he received the news, he ordered his children to prepare their court robes, took the previous emperor's Dan Shu iron voucher, opened the city gates, and went straight to the inner court. This has never happened in the 200 years since the founding of this dynasty. If His Majesty were to be punished for this matter, he would definitely be an incapable ruler. That the impact caused by Wang Chong was far more than that. When the bell rang in the morning, all the civil and military officials rushed in. Your subject, Zhang Yakin, requests your majesty to release Wang Chong. Almost as soon as they entered the hall, one of the ministers fell to his knees with a thud. Then the second, the third, the fourth. Your subject Lu Lin requests your majesty to release Wang Chong. Your subject Su Hanwu requests your majesty to release Wang Chong. Subordinate Sun Taijia beseeches your majesty to release Wang Chong. I Gu Tong request your majesty to release Wang Chong. That each of the ministers had a solemn look on their faces, and their expressions were filled with anger. Zhang Yakin, Lu Lin, Su Hanwu, what are you trying to do? This scene caused Xiao He and the others to be flabbergasted, all of them stunned. However, right after Xiao He finished speaking, something even more shocking happened. This official has a complaint against Xiao He. I, Li Yin Lin, wish to lodge a complaint against Lu Yu. Your subject Zhang Song wishes to lodge a complaint against Zhou Ju. I, Lu Feng, would like to lodge a complaint against Zhang Gui. Your subject Zhou Renren wishes to present a copy of Great General Abusi's book. Thud, thud, thud. The figures knelt down heavily like wooden stakes. Even Great General Luo Busi was stunned by the last sentence. The large imperial court suddenly fell silent. Xiao He and the others did not know why, but when they saw the furious gazes that were directed at them one after another, Xiao He and the others vaguely understood something. They suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. Rejection. A strong rejection. For the first time, Xiao He felt like they were being labeled. For the first time, Xiao He tasted the feeling of being ostracized by the civil and military officials. When Wang Chong said that the Hu formed their own faction, these officials initially did not believe it, and even felt that it was not a big deal. But this time, so many Hu generals had submitted a joint petition. How could Wang Chong be wrong? Gao Xinji was from Xinlua. Foman Linta was a Chong. Geshu Han was from Tuki. Abusi was from Tongluo. And Sishun was from Turkic. But this time, for the sake of dealing with Wang Chong, these different Hu were actually willing to work together. All of the Han officials were infuriated. And when Wang Chong was captured and thrown into the imperial prison in the early hours of the morning, his rage reached its peak. The Hu formed their own faction. Was there even a need to say it? Initially, everyone was still disapproving of Wang Chong's petition. But now who would dare to think that way? The most hateful thing was that as the imperial censor, Xiao He and the others were actually speaking up for an outsider. An outsider was detestable, but an insider was even more so. Xiao He and the others did not know that they had already been marked with the symbol of a foreign tribe. Right now, anyone who spoke up for the Hu would be the enemy of all the Han officials. The entire imperial court was silent. Other than Xiao He and the other Hu generals, all of the Han officials kneeled down, refusing to budge. Your Majesty, Wang Chong is only a 15-year-old child, and he has a patriotic heart. If he were to be punished for his words, wouldn't the people of the world be disappointed? I beseech your Majesty to look into this matter. Dong. When Duke Su and the other dukes, whose standing wasn't beneath Gao Xianji, kneeled down, the atmosphere in the imperial court reached a boiling point. These words didn't just represent Duke Su's words. It also represented the thoughts of all of the officials kneeling here. The entire imperial court was deathly silent. Standing amidst the crowd, Wang Jin looked at this sight with a myriad of emotions in his heart. Chong'er, did you see that? Initially, Wang Jin felt that Wang Chong didn't listen to his advice and wrote the petition. But at this moment, Wang Jin felt that Wang Chong's actions were the right choice. That morning, when more than 80% of the officials kneeled down to plead for Wang Chong, the news shook the entire imperial court. The Wang family. Release me, release me. When the news that her brother Wang Chong had been captured and thrown into the imperial prison spread, the Wang family's little sister flew into a rage. 4 guards, 8 servants, and 6 maids couldn't hold her back at all. Pung! One of the guards was sent flying, crashing heavily into the wall, causing it to collapse. Wang Xiaoyao's innate strength wasn't something that an ordinary person could withstand. Let me into the palace. How dare he capture my brother? I'll kill that dog of an emperor. The Wang family's little sister bellowed furiously. Young mistress, don't. You mustn't say such words. If others were to hear such words, they would surely kill you. All of the guards, maids, and servants paled upon hearing those words. How could such words be spoken so casually? If word were to spread, the Wang clan would be punished with confiscation. In an instant, 6 to 7 hands reached for the Wang family's little sister's mouth, and even more guards rushed forward to surround her and press her down. Not too far away from Wang Xiaoyao, Madame Wang was seated on a wooden armchair. If she had heard the Wang family's little sister spouting such outrageous words in the past, she would have long slapped her. But at this moment, Madame Wang sat there motionlessly, tears flowing down her cheeks. Madame Wang had witnessed Wang Chong being captured, and from then on, she hadn't had a single drop of water to drink. Have you sent anyone over to the old master's residence? Madame Wang suddenly asked. I've been there. The doors of the Four Quarters Embassy are tightly shut, and it's impossible to enter at the moment. The guard lowered his head, and his expression was extremely gloomy. In an instant, despair flashed across Madame Wang's eyes. As a woman, there was nothing she could do. She could only pin her hopes on her father-in-law. But for some reason, the doors of the Four Quarters Embassy were tightly shut all of a sudden, such that even her big brother couldn't enter. Madame Wang had no idea what was going on. The only person she could think of who could save Wang Chong was her father-in-law. If even her father-in-law was helpless, then she really didn't know what she could do. Madame Wang wasn't the only one despairing. What should we do? Should we inform young master's master of this matter? In the corner of the room, Shenhai suddenly thought of the evil emperor. It's useless. This is a matter of the royal court. Besides, his martial arts have been crippled, so there's no need to disturb him. Shenhai's suggestion was rejected by Meng Long without any hesitation. He wanted to save the young master as well, but this wasn't a viable solution. At the same time, in the backyard of the Wang family residence, a gray-robed middle-aged man sighed deeply. Li Zhuxin was hired by Wang Chong at a cost of 5,000 gold taels. He had once promised to ensure Wang Chong's safety. However, this matter was truly beyond his capabilities. On the wall not too far away from Li Zhuxin, Mayasame Ayaka was squatting silently with her head lowered. She seemed to be in low spirits. Although they were all top-notch experts, they were also helpless in this kind of situation. Under an old locust tree in the west of the city, So Yung-sun sat upright with a golden chessboard placed before him. From dawn till dusk, the other side of the golden chessboard was still empty. So Yung-sun still didn't see the figure he was waiting for. Da-da-da. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. The old servant Fong Hong hurried over and whispered into So Yung-sun's ears. Wang. Hearing Fong Hong's words, So Yung-sun's eyelids twitched, and his face warped in shock. Who? A gust of wind blew past, and the locust tree fell silent. So Yung-sun sat beneath the old locust tree with his eyes closed. A contemplative look appeared on his face. No one could tell what he was thinking. It seems like I won't be able to play today. After an unknown period of time, So Yung-sun slowly opened his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he tidied up the black and white stones on the table and placed them back into the box. Then he picked up the golden chessboard and slowly walked out. Grandfather, you must save Big Brother. So Yung-sun had barely taken a few steps when a figure suddenly pounced over and hugged So Yung-sun's ankle, bawling loudly. Su Zhengqian turned around, and the first thing he saw was the teary-eyed little Jianjian hugging him. He had always been fond of candies, but at this moment, the candied haw had fallen to the ground and was thrown to the side. Did you hear that? So Yung-sun said. Fong Hong's voice was already very soft, but this child's ears were sharper than his. Grandfather, Big Brother once said that you are formidable. Big Brother isn't a bad person. You must think of a way to save him. Xiao Jianjian bawled. So Yung-sun fell silent. He gazed at Xiao Jianjian beneath him and sighed deeply. Then, he slowly pulled his leg out and disappeared into the night. The darkness of the night didn't calm the atmosphere in the capital. Instead, it grew more and more agitated. Wang Chong's arrest had already surpassed the scope of the Wang clan, and the memorial that Wang Chong had written. The Hu generals, vice protector generals, and protector generals had jointly accused Wang Chong. as well as Wang Chang's imprisonment. As time passed, the rage didn't subside. Instead, it only grew more intense. After the court session ended, innumerable petitions flew into the inner palace, requesting for Wang Chang's release. This was no longer a matter that concerned Wang Chang alone. It was a storm between the Hu and Han. As night fell, countless messenger pigeons flew in all directions, revealing that more than 80% of the Han officials had knelt down to plead for Wang Chang. This matter immediately triggered an even more intense reaction among the Hu by the borders. The rage of the Han didn't make the Hu compromise. Instead, it incited even greater fury among them. Bastards! What are the Han up to? In the Qixi Protectorate manor, Foman Linta flew into a thunderous rage, and the entire ground trembled in response to his rage. Their hearts are cold, but aren't we cold as well? We who have bathed in blood on the battlefield for the Empire. And yet, we have to suffer the humiliation of a brat. If I don't kill that brat, I won't be able to quell the hatred in my heart. Men, I will write a blood letter to the Holy Emperor. That brat must die. Let's see if His Majesty will choose that brat or us Hu generals. Memorials from the Anxi Protectorate Manor, Qixi Protectorate Manor, Anbei Protectorate Manor, the Big Dipper Army, and many other Hu generals by the borders flew into the capital like snowflakes. This time, it wasn't just Gao Xianji, Foman Linta, Geshu Han, and Sis Hun, and hundreds of Hu generals. Furthermore, unlike the first impeachment, all of the memorials this time were requesting for Wang Chang's death. If we don't kill that brat, we won't be able to appease the anger of the soldiers. If His Majesty doesn't kill that brat, the hearts of the Hu will turn cold. That these were the most frequent words in the memorials of the Hu generals. More than 80% of the officials submitted a memorial to plead for Wang Chang. This matter infuriated all of the Hu generals. They were no longer calling for the impeachment of the Wang clan and Wang Chang, but for Wang Chang's death. When the Hu generals' memorials requesting for Wang Chang's death arrived in the capital like snowflakes, they had no idea that this matter had already attracted the attention of another faction. Bastards! Do they really think that the Tang dynasty belongs to them? Do they really think that the Tang dynasty only has Geshu Han, Foman Linta, and Gao Xianji? Chapter 166. If we don't get rid of this brat, we won't be able to vent the anger in our soldiers' hearts. What do these who think they are doing here? Are they trying to claim credit for themselves, just because they have made some contributions? By the side of the raging sea, a few warships were parked. War flags fluttered in the wind, and 2 words were written on them, Fubo. By the side of the warship, a black-bearded general looked at the news with an awful expression. Pass down my orders. Write a memorial to the emperor. Whoever dares to instigate the execution of Wang Chang will be an enemy of our Fubo army. Ha ha ha. Laughable. 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 These fellows actually dare to threaten His Majesty? Looks like that child is right. These who are a faction of their own. I would like to see if the words of our Han clan, or those barbarians, are the ones calling the shots in the Tang dynasty and the Central Plains. On a hill in the darkness of the night, a muscular general looked at the letter in his hands with a livid expression and roared furiously. Pass on my orders. Write a memorial to the imperial court. Travel 800 miles at top speed, and travel day and night without rest. Whoever dares to touch Wang Chang will be killed by me, Lu, and I. My southern garrison army will protect that Wang Chang. Similar incidents were happening all over the Central Plains. In the history of the Tang dynasty, there had never been a case of so many Hu generals requesting the execution of a single person. Similarly, there had never been a single matter that could incite the wrath of so many Han generals in the Tang dynasty. That night, when the Hu generals' memorials were flying toward the capital, hundreds of Han generals' memorials were also flying toward the capital with blazing anger. The clopping of hooves resounded in the darkness, while the entire Tang dynasty was in chaos due to Wang Chang's matter. The underground of the Tang dynasty's royal palace was serene and silent. Not a single piece of news was able to reach this place. Ah! A soft groan, low and lonely, echoed in the gloomy prison cell. After some time, Wang Chong finally moved. Wang Chong was awakened by the sound of water dripping. In the dark underground, the sound of water dripping was especially loud. It hurts. Wang Chong scratched his head, and all he could feel was dizziness. The golden guards of insignia were extremely heavy-handed. That blow on his sleeping acupoint was definitely not just a light tap. Where is this place? Wang Chong shook his head and slowly got up from the ground. This is the Imperial Prison. A voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Don't tell me you still think we're in some brocade tent. This sentence immediately caused a burst of laughter. Imperial Prison? Wang Chong shuddered, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. And he suddenly sobered up. It was dark and damp, and a few torches glowed on the walls. Wang Chong glanced around, and finally saw clearly that this was a prison cell. It was a prison cell with a long history, and the pillars of the cell were stained with blood. It was a prison cell that sent chills down one's spine. Even the air here was cold. A black fog floated in the air, and the dense aura of death left one shuddering. Imperial Prison? Imperial Prison! In that instant, countless thoughts flashed across his mind. Slowly, as though coming to a realization, Wang Chong calmed down and sat on the floor. Imperial Prison? Imperial Prison. I didn't expect this. In that instant, Wang Chong finally came to a realization. Everything that had happened before he fainted surfaced in his mind. Wang Chong only saw the golden guards of insignia entering, but he didn't expect them to be prison guards of the royal court. A single memorial actually angered the royal court and the Hu, resulting in him being sent to the imperial prison. This was something that Wang Chong didn't expect. The imperial prison was a place where prisoners on death row were kept. Few of those who entered would be able to walk out alive. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. At this moment, Wang Chong finally calmed down. If I live and die for the sake of the country, how can I avoid it because of misfortune or good fortune? If this is my fate, if the great Tang is destined to perish, then let the perishing begin with me. Sitting on the floor, Wang Chong's heart was beating furiously. There was no fear of death in his eyes, only deep sorrow. He had nothing to fear about death. If he coveted wealth, he wouldn't have submitted this memorial in the first place. Wang Chong only felt sorrowful. If no one had reminded him of the regional commander's system and the Hu strategy, it would still be understandable. But even though he had tried his best, and even his grandfather and big uncle had stood up for him, this was still the outcome. This made Wang Chong feel deeply defeated, dejected, and even sorrowful. Hee, look at that new lad. He's petrified. He's actually sitting there motionlessly, as though he's made of wood. The surrounding prison cells burst into laughter. But Wang Chong just sat there motionlessly, as though he didn't hear anything. The laughter grew louder and louder, but it eventually died down, as though it was boring. Wang Chong sat in his prison cell motionless. After an unknown period of time, rumbling footsteps suddenly sounded. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, and he abruptly raised his head. A stern-looking middle-aged man, who had the air of an official, led 6 or 7 imperial prison guards with powerful auras and storm-like auras as they strode in from outside. Clang, clang, clang. The candlelight flickered, and the steel bars in front of Wang Chong clanged loudly. The cold-faced prison official stood in front of Wang Chong, staring coldly at him with an incomparably sharp gaze. You're Wang Chong. The prison official glanced at the token in his hand and said, Yes. Wang Chong didn't deny it. Since you are, tell me honestly. The prison official said coldly and harshly. Tell me what? Wang Chong finally raised his head. Presumptuous. You're already here, but you're still so stubborn. If you didn't commit any crimes, would you be here? You'd better tell me honestly, lest you suffer. The prison official raised his eyebrows and stared at Wang Chong, looking extremely displeased. I don't know what crimes I've committed, and I have nothing to tell you. Wang Chong said calmly. Ha ha ha, this kid is still stubborn. Kid, this is just a routine interrogation. You'd better tell me quickly lest you suffer. There's no one here who doesn't tell you the truth. That's right. Trying to act tough in front of Lord Zhou. Aren't you courting death? Lord Zhou has at least 100 ways to make you talk. The surrounding prisoners burst into laughter. The prisoners looked at Wang Chong with disdain, as though they could already see Wang Chong suffering. This prison official, Zhou Xing, was a ruthless official. In his hands, there wasn't a single person who wouldn't have their flesh torn apart. Even if they were made of steel, they wouldn't be able to endure it. He had hundreds of ways to torture others. Being stubborn in front of him would only lead to suffering, and the gains would not make up for the losses. Shut up! A ferocious roar reminiscent of a lion's roar echoed. In an instant, all of the prisoners fell into silence. The imperial prison was isolated from the world. And in here, Zhou Xing was the living King Yama. Everyone's life and death rested in his hands. No one dared to resist him. Have you really thought it through? Is there nothing to say? Zhou Xing stared at Wang Chong with a terrifyingly dark expression. No. Wang Chong shook his head, his expression calm and unperturbed. Very well. This is your first time here, so you don't know the rules. I'll give you a few more hours to think it through. If I still hear the same answer when the sun rises, I will be very unhappy. As he spoke, Zhou Xing didn't even bother concealing the threat in his eyes. At the end of his words, Zhou Xing made no attempt to conceal the threat in his eyes. Anyone who dared to defy him would have to suffer. If anyone dared to defy him, they would have to suffer a lot of physical pain. Zhou Xing led the prison guards away. After Zhou Xing left, countless sympathetic gazes turned toward Wang Chong. After Zhou Xing left, countless sympathetic gazes turned toward Wang Chong simultaneously. The last time Zhou Xing had such a gaze, 3 people died in the imperial prison. The last time such an expression appeared in Zhou Xing's eyes, 3 people had died in the imperial prison. An old prisoner looked at Wang Chong and sighed deeply. An old prisoner looked at Wang Chong and sighed deeply. But Wang Chong was oblivious to all of this. He sat cross-legged on the ground. His heart was like still water, without any movement. Amidst this silence, time trickled by slowly. After an unknown period of time, all Wang Chong heard was the sound of water dripping for 21,600 times. It felt like an eternity, and finally he heard familiar footsteps. The sun has risen, Wang Chong sighed. Opening his eyes, he saw Warden Zhou Xing and a few prison guards standing before him. But unlike the first time, Zhou Xing didn't say a single word this time. He just stared at Wang Chong with a bizarre expression, as though this was the first time he was seeing Wang Chong. You're Wang Chong? Zhou Xing tilted his head and asked. The same words, the same person, but the feeling it gave off was completely different. I am. Wang Chong was flabbergasted, but he still spoke in a voice as calm as before. The moment Wang Chong said those words, Zhou Xing's expression suddenly turned bizarre. It was a little surprised, a little confused, and a little fearful. Wang Gongzi, I apologize for offending you last night. Suddenly, Zhou Xing bowed deeply. Wang. In an instant, all of the prisoners who were waiting for Zhou Xing to arrive with his torture equipment were dumbfounded. What was going on? Zhou Xing was known for his ruthless methods. Why would he bow to a new prisoner? Everyone was dumbfounded, and their minds couldn't process the situation at all. You fellows, hurry up and prepare Wang Gongzi's meal. Can Wang Gongzi eat the food here? Zhou Xing kicked away his rice bowl as he bellowed at the prison guards beside him. After which, he turned to look at Wang Chong cautiously. Wang Gongzi, the imperial prison is damp. I'll arrange it for you, spread the blankets and clean it up for you. A person like you shouldn't be here. And you shouldn't be cuffed. However, it's the will of the heavens, so I hope Gongzi can forgive me. Zhou Xing sneaked a glance at Wang Chong and said fearfully, What in the world happened? Wang Chong couldn't help but ask. This. Gongzi, please forgive me for not being able to tell you. Zhou Xing hesitated. After cleaning up the spoiled rice bowl, Zhou Xing didn't dare to stay any longer and left hurriedly. Only by investigating the matter would he know what kind of person he had locked up. In Zhou Xing's life, he had been locked up in all sorts of important officials. Be it a 9th rank or a 1st rank, an insignificant official collecting 5 buckets of rice, or a famous general in the royal court. Zhou Xing didn't care about any of them. In the imperial prison there were only prisoners, and all of the prisoners had to listen to him. But the young man before him was too unique. In Zhou Xing's life, He had never met with such a situation. Even though he was a high official, he wasn't a general or a minister. However, he wasn't someone whom his small prison could lock up. Zhou Xing had intended to torture him, but after the incident in the royal court, he didn't dare to do so even if he was 100 times bolder. Such a person wasn't someone he could afford to offend. From dawn to noon, one group of golden-armored prison guards after another passed by Wang Chang's cell with all sorts of titles. Other than during torture, it was rare to see these prison guards here. But in a single day, the prisoners here had seen at least 30 to 40 royal guards. Everyone was trying their best to assess Wang Chong. Their gazes were filled with shock and fear, but none of them said a single word. After staying for a moment, they left hurriedly. The curiosity of the people in the prison cells grew. No one could understand what was going on. Even more so, they couldn't understand the background of this beardless young man. After an unknown period of time, when another group of prison guards passed by, one of them flicked his finger lightly, and a crumpled piece of paper immediately fell on the ground in front of Wang Chong. After they left, Wang Chong suddenly walked over and picked it up. Unfolding the crumpled piece of paper, Wang Chong took a look. With just a single look, Wang Chong's face immediately warped. From the moment he entered the imperial prison until now, this was the first time Wang Chong realized that the world outside the imperial prison had been turned upside down. Chapter 167. The memorials from the Hu generals requesting for Wang Chong's death had incited an unimaginable fury in the Han army. Everyone was enraged. The next morning, when thousands of memorials piled up in the royal court, all of the officials were frightened stiff. These memorials came from all over the border, and every single one of them was stamped with the seal of a general. Every single one of them was filled with rage. When hundreds and thousands of generals surrendered at the same time, that kind of enormous pressure was unimaginable to ordinary people. In the history of the Tang dynasty, there had never been such a situation. For thousands of Han generals to side with a single person, speaking up for a single person. But Wang Chong had done it. Anyone who dares to instigate the death of Wang Chong will be my enemy. Such vehement words appeared in almost every single one of the memorials. Even though the words used were different, the meaning they conveyed was the same. Furthermore, there was no hint of compromise. Not only so, the hundreds of memorials from the Hu infuriated the entire Han army. For the first time, the Han generals as a group displayed their will. This wasn't just reflected in the memorials from the royal court, it was also reflected in their rage toward the Hu generals. Thousands upon thousands of military memorials flew toward the Hu generals by the borders, carrying the rage of the Han generals. All of the Hu generals who had impeached Wang Chong and demanded for Wang Chong's death received military memorials from the Han generals. Similar memorials also appeared before Gao Xianji, Fomin Linta, Geshu Han, and Sis Hun, and the other top-notch Hu generals. This matter had a huge impact on the Hu generals. This was the first time they felt the might of the Han generals. At noon, when a document signed by 100 generals appeared in the court, it added fuel to the fire and pushed the influence of the whole matter to the peak. The generals who appeared on this letter were no ordinary generals. They were the conferred generals of the Tang dynasty. From the Qin to the Western Han, only those generals with exceptional status and unique contributions could obtain a unique title, and they were known as conferred generals. The weight of these people was far greater than that of ordinary generals. General of suppressing waves, general of ships, general of destruction, general of 9 cauldrons, general of 10,000 crossbows, general of the sea, general of pacifying barbarians, general of the south, general of sweeping north, general of southern dipper, general of dragon cavalry, general of charging vanguard. These conferred generals were scattered all over the world. But because of Wang Chong, these generals were able to gather everyone's signatures within a single day. This was simply inconceivable. When almost all of the famous generals of the Tang dynasty appeared on this letter, the weight of this 100 generals letter could be imagined. In the letter, The 100 conferred generals vouched for Wang Chong. At the same time, they questioned Geshu Han, Gao Xianji, Fomin Linta, and Sis Hun, and the others. How many Hu and Han generals were there in the army? There were 300,000 Han soldiers by the border, but only 100,000 or so Hu soldiers. The Han far outnumbered the Hu, and if a Han soldier were to die in battle, the Central Army would be able to send in reinforcements. But in the border, were the ones speaking the Han or the Hu? In the border armies, which were mainly made up of Han people, were there more Han generals or Hu generals? There were many things that, once revealed, would be completely different. The conflict between the Hu and Han had been going on for a long time. Anxi, Qishi, Baiting and Longyu, which Geshu Han was in charge of, were all mainly Han. Their weapons, bows, arrows, rations, horses, and artillery were all supplied by the royal court. The commanders of these 4 important military forces were all Hu, and they were all under the control of the Hu. This matter had already caused a huge stir in the army. It was only because of the pressure from above that no one dared to bring it up. But now, because of Wang Chong, all of this was being vented. The officials in the royal court might not understand what Wang Chong had mentioned in the memorial, but to the generals in the military, what Wang Chong had written was exactly what they were thinking. On this point, they were completely on the same side as Wang Chong. In truth, Wang Chong's letter was also fighting for the interests of all the Han generals. If Wang Chong were to be executed by the royal court over this matter, no one would be able to accept it. The development of this matter had exceeded everyone's expectations. The Bureau of Military Personnel, Bureau of Punishments, the imperial censors, the entire royal court was in chaos. Now that things had developed to this point, it was no longer something that a single person could handle. Memorials in support of Wang Chong flew in from all directions to the royal court. At the same time, memorials requesting for Wang Chong's death to uphold the dignity of the Hu were also being sent to the royal court. Now that things had developed to this point, it was no longer something that anyone could stop. Even the likes of Geshu Han, Gao Xianji and Fomin Linta could no longer restrain them. This matter concerned the interests of the entire Hu. In the 200-odd years since the founding of the Tang dynasty, this was the first time that the Hu and the Han were at loggerheads in the royal court. Neither side was willing to give in to the other. South of Western Shu's Swords Gate, rain continued to fall. Amidst the rain, oil fires blazed fiercely. A massive army of 800 li was densely packed in the undulating mountains. In the middle of the army, there was a huge mansion. Above it, there were 5 words written in golden letters. Annan Protectorate Manor. Every single word was as heavy as Mount Tai. The Tang dynasty had 10 protectorate generals. And while most of the influential armies were in the hands of the Hu, not all of the elites were in the hands of the Hu. In the Tang dynasty, just south of Western Shu's Swords Gate, there were 180,000 soldiers stationed. They were responsible for suppressing Mengshi Zhao and the Yuzhan Empire that was threatening to invade the southern highlands. In the Tang dynasty, the Annan Protectorate Manor could be considered as keeping a low profile, as battles weren't as frequent, and there weren't as many reports of victory to report. The Annan Protectorate Manor didn't have much presence in the royal court. However, this didn't mean that the 180,000 soldiers were worthless. An Anxi Protectorate Manor, a Qishi Protectorate Manor, and a Big Dipper Army Vice Commander. Do they really think that the Tang dynasty only has these few? Within the massive protectorate headquarters, a middle-aged man dressed in black heavy armor was seated cross-legged on the ground. In front of him was a chopping board cast from iron. The fire was roaring, and a middle-aged man dressed in black heavy armor sat cross-legged on the ground. On the chopping board was the latest intelligence from the royal court. Marshal, we have always kept a low profile and bided our time. Shouldn't we not get involved in the matters of the royal court this time around? Next to the middle-aged, short-haired man, a smart-looking advisor with a mustache said worriedly. He was the advisor of the Annan Protectorate Manor, as well as the military advisor of the Annan Protectorate Manor. Having worked together for more than 30 years, he knew his marshal well. As soon as the middle-aged man spoke, he knew that his marshal was about to get involved in this matter. We won't be able to gain anything from this. Instead, we'll attract the attention of the Anchi Protectorate Manor, Chishi Protectorate Manor, the Big Dipper Army Vice Commander, and all of the who. I beseech Marshal to reconsider, the mustached advisor said uneasily. The storm in the royal court was simply too huge, so huge that he was feeling uneasy. He didn't think that it was a wise decision to get involved in this matter. Jian, you still understand. There are things that a man should do and not do. It's right for us to keep a low profile and avoid trouble. However, this matter is different. Haven't you noticed? At this moment, anyone who dares to stay out of this matter will become everyone's enemy. Zhangqiu Jinxiong chuckled. There was a sharpness in his eyes that belied his appearance. Zhangqiu was a compound surname. Even though it sounded like a Hu, Zhangqiu Jinxiong was a Han through and through. Zhangqiu was a later surname, just like Chao, which didn't exist in the original 100 family surnames. But regardless of whether it was a compound or a compound surname, Zhangqiu Jinxiong was undoubtedly a Han, and he was the powerful southern protector general of the Tang dynasty. His standing wasn't beneath that of Anqi's Gao Xianji, Qishi's Foman Linta, or the Big Dipper Army's Geshu Han. Do you still not understand the meaning behind the joint name of the 100 family generals? Jian, this is no longer a matter of Wang Chang's life or death. Rather, it is a conflict of interests between the Han and Hu. Whoever dares to play tricks and stay out of this matter will lose their standing in the military. Jian, your scheme isn't bad, but you're still lacking in the grand scheme of things. Zhangqiu Jinxiong said calmly. Unknowingly, an imposing aura that felt as vast as the mountains and the sea flowed out from his body, distorting even the flames and space in the hall. The military advisor, whom Zhangqiu Jinxiong addressed as Jian, was taken aback. For a moment he was speechless, and a contemplative look appeared on his face. Zhangqiu Jinxiong chuckled, but he didn't say anything. In his mind, he recalled the young man he had met in the capital. Just what kind of young man could have the courage to write such an incisive memorial? Did Duke Jiu teach him? Zhangqiu shook his head. Given Duke Jiu's personality, he would never stoop to such a thing. Could it be Wang Zhen? That person from the Wang clan wielded great authority in the royal court. If it wasn't Duke Jiu, it was most likely to be him. But did Wang Zhen have the courage to do so? Zhangqiu shook his head once more. He had met Wang Zhen a few times in his younger days. Lord Wang was definitely a far-sighted person, and his political acumen was formidable. But it was precisely for this reason that he found it even more difficult to write such a memorial. If even he couldn't write such a spirited memorial, how could he possibly teach his nephew? At this point, Zhangqiu couldn't help but sigh deeply. He had roughly understood the truth. To think that our Tang dynasty would have such a valiant figure. So what if I, Zhangqiu, put down my principles and support you? Zhangqiu Jinxiong sighed deeply as he stretched out his right hand. Bring me my brush. I'll be writing this memorial myself. Walala. Chapter 168. Zhangqiu Jinxiong wasn't the only one paying attention to the affairs of the royal court. While Zhangqiu Jinxiong's great kite was flying toward the capital, in a massive tent in the northeast of the Tang dynasty, golden cups, silver bowls, and tiger pelts were placed on the floor. In the tent, an energetic figure in his 40s was chuckling heartily as he feasted on meat and wine. He exuded a ferocious and intimidating aura. Ha ha ha, Z. Have you seen the documents on the table? These are the signatures of 100 generals. They are all pleading for me, the great general who supports the empire. The Eastern Protector General, the founding Duke of Southern Sun Commandery. The armors of the people in the tent vibrated, and their long hair danced in the wind. They were clearly in a good mood. Is Marshal really going to interfere in this matter? Back then, a single sentence from Duke Jiu delayed Marshal for nearly 20 years at the border. Not too far away, separated by a basin of charcoal, a scholarly middle-aged Confucian general was sitting cross-legged. His mustache drooped down from his lips, giving off the impression of a modest gentleman. He was Zhang Shougui's lifelong friend, Wu Zi, who had gone through life and death with him. The two of them had joined the army together. From the Tang dynasty's Longxi garrison to Guazhou to the current Eastern Protector General, intimidating the Shi tribe, Khitans, and even the distant Turks, the two of them had always been the best partners, and they were best friends who had transcended life and death. Right now, the Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, who had risen to fame in the imperial court, and was known as the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, Geshu brings his saber at night, was only plowing the land he had once plowed. In terms of experience, Geshu Han was just a junior. Before an elder like Zhang Shogui, he had nothing to show off. There weren't many valiant generals in the Tang dynasty, and there were even fewer who could suppress Geshu Han. However, Zhang Shogui was definitely one of them. This was also the reason why so many conferred generals' documents were flying toward the protectorate of the Northeast. In the Tang dynasty, there were only a few generals who could stand against the powerful who like Gao Xianji, Fomin Linta, Geshu Han, and Insis Hun. Grand General who supports the nation, Zhang Shogui, was definitely one of the best. As for conferred generals, while their status was higher than that of ordinary generals, they were still lacking in terms of weight. Zhang Jiuling took advantage of his seniority and ruined my path to becoming a minister. How could I not remember that? Hearing Wu Zi's words, Zhang Shogui's face darkened. Zhang Shogui knew that Wu Zi was talking about the past events of the Holy Emperor 23 years ago. At the time, Zhang Shogui had just arrived in Yuzhou, and he had dealt a heavy blow to the Khitan tribes that were at the height of their power and threatening Yuzhou and the Tang dynasty to the northeast. Coupled with Longyou's many defeats of Uzan, Zhang Shogui's reputation was like the sun in the sky, and there was even a rumor that he was the Minister of Desire. Alas, Wang Jiuling believed that Zhang Shogui was truly too young and immature. Although he was used to war, he might not be able to take on the role of Prime Minister and manage the imperial court. Thus, when the Holy Emperor asked, he was rejected by Wang Chong's grandfather Wang Jiuling. He said, "Shogui has just defeated the Khitans, and your majesty is already the prime minister. If we were to destroy the Shi and the Turks, how would your majesty reward us?" This directly shattered Zhang Shogui's dream of becoming prime minister. If not for this, Zhang Shogui might have become the youngest prime minister in the history of the Tang dynasty. The hatred in Zhang Shogui's heart was unimaginable. However, even though that Wang clan brat isn't worth saving, that fellow Fomin Linta is even more despicable. Could it be that with so many people pleading for me to make a move, I can humiliate that person from the Wang clan and crush that fellow Fomin Linta's reputation? What's there to be against it? Zhang Shogui suddenly burst into laughter. Wang Jiuling was known as Duke Jiu, and he was highly respected in the imperial court. Although Zhang Shogui was displeased that Wang Jiuling had foiled his plans back then, he couldn't deal with such a person as forcefully as he did on the battlefield. Saving his grandson was the best way to humiliate him. As for Fomin Linta, there were few in the Tang dynasty who could compare to Zhang Shogui in terms of seniority, and Fomin Linta was definitely one of them. Back then, when Zhang Shogui wasn't the Anong Protector General, and he was still fighting against Uzan in Longyu, Guazhou, Qixi, and Anxi intersected, and the two of them didn't come into conflict. This time, Fomin Linta was making a huge fuss, and Zhang Shogui couldn't stand it anymore. Compared to the prospect of teaching Fomin Linta a lesson, saving Duke Jiu's grandson, Wang Chong, wasn't a big deal. However, given the current situation, the Hu and Han generals are at odds with one another in the royal court because of that child. We are in Yuzhou, and unlike the Han generals in other places, we have many Hu generals and soldiers under us. If we were to interfere recklessly, I'm afraid that our subordinates might start a rebellion, and that would be disadvantageous to us. Wu Zi frowned and said worriedly. The more he knew about the happenings in the royal court, the more worried he was. Given the current situation, it wasn't wise for them to interfere recklessly. Unexpectedly, when Wu Zi's words fell into Zhang Shogui's ears, he burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, Zi! Why are you learning from those people in the royal court? What Han and Hu generals, what fools! In my Yuzhou before me, Zhang Shogui, there are no Hu or Han. There are only those who obey me, and those who don't. Horse, what do you think? Zhang Shogui suddenly turned his head around, and his eyes were as sharp as lightning. Not too far away, he saw a plump Hu in his early 20s eating grass on the ground. Under Zhang Shogui's gaze, the plump Hu trembled and cold sweat dripped down his forehead. Fear was written all over his face. Commander is right. We the Hu are horses. How can horses compare to you? Fomen Linta, Gao Xianji, and the others are the same as me. We are horses. As he spoke, he stuck out his bottom and chewed on the grass in his mouth. He mimicked horse neighing and fawning. Ha ha ha. Seeing the fawning look on the Hu, Zhang Shogui burst into laughter. Even Wu Zi couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of it. Those who obey me can live, and those who don't will die. Zhang Shogui laughed. He suddenly whipped out a token from his waist and threw it out of the tent. Outside the tent, a cold gale blew. More than 100 bound Shi, Chiton, and Turkic who stood amidst the bone-chilling wind. Behind them were more than 100 executioners. Kill! Their heads fell to the ground, and fresh blood spurted out. The 100 Shi, Chiton and Turkic who fell to the ground like wooden pillars. They struggled for a moment before coming to a stop. Soon armored soldiers came over and dragged their corpses away. They threw them into a ditch and buried them. The thick stench of blood wafted through the rain. Here the grass on the ground was red. To the east of the Tang dynasty, to the east of Yuzhou, Zhang Shogui was an existence that could stop a child from crying. Just as he had said, in Yuzhou in front of Zhang Shogui, there were no Hu no Han. There were only those who obeyed and those who disobeyed. Those who obeyed would live, and those who disobeyed would die. Pung! The tent was torn apart, and that Hu who had been pretending to be a horse and sucking up to Wang Chong flew out like a white meatball. Bring Ashina along? Come on, we two hunters, let's get to work together. If we don't capture 200 Shi and Chiton Hu today, 2 more people will be sleeping in that ditch. Don't think about escaping. You should know that you won't be able to. That ice-cold voice was even more bone-chilling than the chilly wind. Caw! Almost as the 2 who scrambled out of Zhang Shogui's tent, a crow shot out of the tent like an arrow, flying against the clouds toward the Tang dynasty's capital. Grand General assisting the nation Zhang Shogui, Enong Protector General. When Zhang Shogui's name appeared in the imperial court, he would become the most important bargaining chip for the Han generals. In the military world of the Tang dynasty, Zhang Shogui was a figure of great stature, one of the 2 legendary existences of the Central Plains in the generation of the current Holy Emperor. However, there was another person in the military world who was even more important than Zhang Shogui, with even more illustrious achievements. When Yozhou's Protector General, Anong Protector General Zhang Shogui's memorial appeared in the imperial court, countless people immediately turned to this Han military leader. To the east of the Tang dynasty's imperial palace, in the Crown Prince's imperial Tudor residence on Green Dragon Street, a square-faced, dignified, and resolute middle-aged man sat by the bedside, his brow furrowed. Although he didn't exude the slightest aura, the middle-aged man exuded the aura of someone who wielded supreme authority over the entire world. His every action, though casual, exuded an intimidating and respectful aura. In front of this middle-aged man, everyone could not help but lower their heads, not even daring to look him in the eye. They naturally felt a sense of respect. This person was the Crown Prince's imperial tutor Wang Zhongxi. In the Tang dynasty, there were few people who could surpass the likes of Zhang Shogui, Fomen Linta, Gao Xianji, Geshu Han and Insist Han. Wang Zhongxi was definitely someone who could do this. The reason was simple. The current vice commander of the Big Dipper army, Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, had been groomed by him. Wang Zhongxi didn't hold any illustrious position in the military. In fact, he had already relinquished his military authority, and he only held the title of the Crown Prince's imperial tutor. But in terms of the positions he had held, there was no one in the entire Tang dynasty who could match up to him. Daizhou Governor, Imperial Censor, Hedong Military Commander, Yunhui General, Zhuayulan General, and even the Northern Protector General, Qixi Protector General, Eastern Protector General, Southern Protector General. He had held all of these positions. In terms of achievements, there was no one in the entire Tang dynasty who could match up to him. When he was the Eastern Protector General, he defeated the Shi and the Khitans. When he was the Northern Protector General, he swept through the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates, defeating them and winning 20 years of peace. When he was in Longyu, he fought his way up to the Uzun Plateau, forcing even the monks of the Great Snowy Mountain to deal with him. In Wang Zhongxi's life, other than the western region's Suya city, he had fought every single opponent he could lay his hands on. However, he was different from the other generals. Wang Zhongxi had never been a utilitarian. In every single battle, he would bring his military authority with him and return with it. On the battlefield, he was an invincible marshal, but when he returned, he would return as a nameless figure, carrying only the title of the Crown Prince's imperial tutor. Furthermore, unlike the other generals, Wang Zhongxi was compassionate towards his soldiers. Even though he had contributed greatly to the war, he wasn't willing to start one. Thus, throughout his life, Wang Zhongxi tried his best not to start a war. At the same time, Wang Zhongxi was more than willing to leave the opportunity to gain fame and experience to the younger generation. This was also the reason why he was respected in the royal court. More importantly, even though Wang Zhongxi had made so many contributions and defeated so many opponents, he was still only 50 years old. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.